In the low glow of the room, a mama vamp, her face smeared with the blood of her own kid, gives her husband, Seo Tae-ho, quite the shock. He's staring at her, horrified, wrestling with how she could do this to their child. Anger takes over and Tae-ho decides it's time to put an end to this horror show. As he tries to keep this nightmare under wraps from his bro, life throws him a curveball. His brother walks in, stumbling upon the bloody mess. Disappointment carved on his face, he grills Tae-ho about what it means to off not just any vampire, but his wife, the daughter of the high and mighty Yu family. Tied up in a knot of explanations, Tae-ho tries to make his brother see how far gone his wife was. The room is heavy with secrets, betrayal, and a family ripped apart by the unimaginable. His brother, cigarette hanging from his lips, tells him that all the chatter won't save him. Then, curiosity piqued, he asks about his nephew. But as Seo Tae-ho steps closer, he lets slip the gut-wrenching news about the little one. His brother, unmoved, tells him to pull himself together and head into the iron cave. Fear flashing in his eyes, he begs, saying he doesn't want to go. As the big brother, he's told to follow orders, but the pleas don't stop. Finally, his brother hauls him up, throws him down, and orders him to get in the cave. The scene flips to Jeongyeon, the only daughter, looking wiped after losing both folks. She thanks her uncle, mentions that rain's on the way, and nudges him to head home. But he pushes back, telling her not to be alone and offering his place as a crash pad. She holds her ground, saying this is her home and she's not going anywhere. He tries to comfort her, saying her mom's at peace now. After he's gone, she grabs a smoke, lights up, and lets the smoke swirl around her, her quiet companion in the face of loss. Even after what feels like ages, the rain outside keeps pouring. Jeongyeon can't help but wonder if the sky is weeping because she didn't at her mom's funeral, a thought that suggests maybe the universe is crying for her. As she continues to draw on her cigarette, she can't hide her annoyance with the never-ending rain, seeing it as an echo of her own sorrow. Meanwhile, Seo Tae-ho is in the middle of a mad dash through the same rain, a sure sign he's gone against his brother's instructions. The Yu family's henchmen are hot on his heels, not letting up for a second. With his ankle and shoulder screaming in pain, he fights through it, leaping across rooftops in a desperate bid for freedom. Despite his determination, the steady blood loss is wearing him down. Glancing around for a place to hide, he spots a possible refuge and makes a dive through a window just as the goons are left scratching their heads, puzzled about where he's gone. But the second Tae-ho hits the deck, he's out cold, leaving the guards scratching their heads about where their slippery target has disappeared to. Back at Jeongyeon's pad, her only company is her dad's whiskey and some OJ. As she pours a glass of the hard stuff and sparks up another smoke, she decides this pair isn't going anywhere soon. Suddenly, a strange sound breaks up her solo session. Intrigued, she heads upstairs, figuring it's probably a bird that's flown into a window but managed to survive. When she gets to the room, she finds an open window, relieved she won't have to deal with cleaning up a bird. But there's a strange smell in the air, which makes her look around. And what does she find? A dude in a seriously messed up condition. In the thick of a high-stakes meet-up with his crew, Seo Tae-kyung spills the beans about a brewing war with the Yu clan. But the room's buzzing with doubt, with folks questioning their own team and suspecting some nasty scheme by the big boss of the Yu clan to wipe out Seo Tae-ho. The air's heavy with suspicion and tension. Jin Chong, a big shot in the group, cranks up the worry, voicing fears that Tae-ho could be next in line for the throne, a thought that unnerves many. To deal with this air headache, she puts forward a plan wrapped up in wedding bells, suggesting her sister, Chong Chong, as the perfect partner. Tae-kyung, cautious of potential drama, nixes the idea, questioning Chong Chong's stability, hinting she might be as troubled as his sister-in-law. This dismissal doesn't sit well with Jin Chong, who blows a fuse, demanding to know why he's branding her sis as crazy. Then, out of nowhere, she whips out her secret weapon, super long, sharp nails, and gives Tae-kyung a taste of pain. The room goes deathly quiet as everyone tries to make sense of the chaos. Trying to play it cool, Jin Chong brushes off the incident, telling everyone it's no biggie. Seo Tae-kyung, realizing it's time to make tracks, calls it a day and heads out with his crew. Back at his place, Taekyung points out where Jin Chong's nails left their mark. Rather than feeling sorry, she finds it hilarious, laughing it off as payback for getting on her bad side. With an easygoing vibe, she suggests patching him up with her spit, which is definitely a different kind of first aid. In the middle of this weird healing session, Taekyung, a mix of awe and confusion, recognizes Jin Chong's strange combo of sweetness and savagery. Not missing a beat, she brings the conversation back to her sister. Taekyung lets slip about a quirky post-baby phase in their group, where women tend to go a bit wild. His own mom being a case in point would have taken a bite if not for some self-control. Taekyung got the pleasure of witnessing his own birth, thanks to his mom's unique parenting style. They call it the craziness, a signature move of the Seo clan. Despite Jin Chong's promise that Chong won't follow suit, Taekyung throws a wrench in the works, asking if she'd own up if things with her sister went pear-shaped. The plot thickens. With the upcoming war against the U clan on the horizon, Taekyung drops a bombshell, hinting at a whole other level to the forthcoming showdown. In the cozy confines of Jeongyeon's home, she finds herself in a staring contest with a stranger who seems straight out of a sci-fi flick. She's left wondering if this bizarre encounter is just a whiskey-fueled dream or reality on a weird day. Not one to mince words, she comments on his unusual features, those elf-like ears and teeth that could cut glass. In response, the stranger steps closer, his long, creepy nails gently lifting her chin, implying that their meeting is due to some seriously bad luck. As she's trying to wrap her head around this, Jeongyeon realizes that her uninvited guest isn't just your run-of-the-mill silent type, but a full-blown talking creature, a monster, for lack of a better word. As she takes in his otherworldly charm, she can't help but notice his injuries and blood stains. But before she can fully process this, he spooks her by placing his hand on her neck and casually mentioning his fondness for human chow. This leaves her contemplating the absurdity of a monster rocking bling, a weird mix of supernatural and materialistic. Unfazed by his shocking revelation, Jeongyeon flips the script. Displaying unexpected kindness, she offers to patch him up, mentioning there are wet wipes downstairs that might come in handy. With his hand still on her neck, she negotiates this odd deal, gently prying his hand off and telling him to stay put. His reaction? Utter shock at her fearlessness in the face of his beastly persona. Back in her space, the strange guy kicks back in a chair as she heads to the bathroom to scrub off the blood he left on her. As she cleans up, she recalls how she bravely helped him, despite his unsettling comments. After a brief chat, she suggests a hospital visit, but he shrugs it off, telling her to get some rest while assuring her he'll be okay. As she's about to leave to grab him some fresh clothes, he throws her a curveball. He asks if she's scared he might go full monster mode. Quick-witted as ever, Jeongyeon shoots back, asking if he's planning a murder spree right now because that would be seriously creepy. Serving some hard truths, she points out that once he's good to go, he needs to hit the road, whether he's a criminal or a monster, because it's not her problem. Leaving him to ponder, he can't help but wonder about this woman who can handle a bloodbath without batting an eyelid. He figures she's got her own baggage, but decides it's best not to dig deeper. Meanwhile, Jeongyeon, drink in hand, thinks over why he believes she's afraid of him. She concludes that he's one weird character. As the sun rises on the next day, our guy's deep in frustration, grappling with the idea of relying on a human's help once more. To add to the headache, the pack unleashed by Yu Myong-sung and his brother are still out there on the hunt. Eyeing the dysfunctional telephone in the house, he's hit with a wave of worry. What if Jeongyeon decides to report him and the goons trace him down? It's enough to make him uneasy. Turning his attention to the fridge, he's met with disappointment, nothing but booze. Cue the frustration boiling over. In a fit of hunger-induced impatience, he screams at Jeongyeon to pick up the pace with whatever she's doing. In response, she calmly reminds him that she offered to grab some food the night before, but he shot down the idea. Trust issues kick in, and he questions how he can rely on her. What if she went out and dialed someone to give him up? Craving some real sustenance after losing a good amount of blood, he mentions wanting to eat meat. When Jeongyeon suggests bacon, he dismisses it, claiming he doesn't eat cheap things. Annoyed, she tells him to hang tight while she finishes up and throws a remark about him standing around like a pervert. Slamming the door, she leaves him bewildered and frustrated, prompting him to shout that she's just plain weird. So, she finally steps out, and he hits her with the classic "what's with the pathetic look?" Not missing a beat, she shoots a look his way and starts musing about the dress he's rocking, something about her dad's taste. He grins and decides to play the teasing card, asking if she's got a crush on him. She fires back, telling him to keep on dreaming. As they stroll out, he's curious about her lack of wheels. She throws him a surprise, saying it's not necessary for her. Then, he drops a classic foot-in-mouth moment, asking if she's got a ton of troubles because, despite her ugly appearance and the no-makeup thing, how can he expect her to have a fancy ride or a swanky house? She gives him the side-eye and asks if she really looks like that. His comeback? He tells her she's got the face of someone ready to commit suicide. Ouch. Then, there's a dog on the scene, barking up a storm. She casually mentions that dogs love giving her a vocal welcome, like it's a daily thing. Out of nowhere, she pops the question, "Ever eaten a dog?" He laughs it off, saying no matter how hungry she gets, chowing down on a pup is a no-go. But then he gives the dog a stare down, asks if it's gonna keep barking, and bam, the poor thing collapses. Jeongyeon's jaw drops, and she feels a sudden chill. He grabs her shoulder, and she's squeezing her fists in fear. He hits her with a smile, saying if she wasn't as skinny as she is, he might have gone for her instead of the dog. In her thoughts, she's doing the monster human mind dance, wondering why they always see humans as snacks. She tries to shake it off, telling herself not to overthink it. If he wanted her gone, he'd have done it ages ago. She decides to throw his words back at him, reminding him that he called her ugly and claimed someone like her wouldn't suit his tastes. To her surprise, he nods like an idiot, agreeing he won't eat her. In her head, she's shaking her metaphorical head, thinking this monster is clearly an idiot. So, Seo Tae-ho fires off a question, wondering why she's mostly silent when he's talking to her. She doesn't hold back, firing back that it's because he keeps spouting nonsense. Then, she hits him with a zinger, asking if all girls are supposed to plaster smiles on their faces, just for him. He attempts to clear the air, but she's having none of it, flagging down a taxi mid-convo. In full-on taxi mode, he's shouting at her, telling her not to cut him off while he's laying down the wisdom. They both pile into the cab, and when they finally reach their stop, he whips out some cash from her wallet to pay the fare. She's left wondering how in the world he got his hands on her wallet in the first place. As they step out, he throws out the idea of grabbing a bite to eat. As they stroll along, the rumor mill starts cranking up with people whispering about Seo Tae-ho. Some think he's a celeb, others ponder if he's a model or an artist. Jeongyeon can't help but wonder what the fuss is all about. Is he really that good-looking? Shaking off her thoughts, Seo Tae-ho grabs her hand, questioning why she's frozen in place, urging her to pick up the pace. In his mind, he's worried about standing out too much. Yu Myung might catch wind of him, and with his body still on the mend, it's exhausting. All he wants is a simple meal. Gripping Jeongyeon's hand tighter, he tells her to hustle, but she's quick to point out that he's hurting her and demands he let go. Curious, she questions why he's so keen on sharing a meal with her. In her thoughts, Jeongyeon contemplates how her life is anything but normal. The bustling midday crowd stands in stark contrast to the chaos in her own life. Yet, paradoxically, this monster next to her brings a touch of normalcy. Clutching her stomach, Jeongyeon can't ignore the rumbling hunger. They finally make it to the restaurant, and Seo Tae-ho dives into the feast like there's no tomorrow, 7 plates of beef steak and counting, plus a third bottle of wine. Jeongyeon, eyeing this eating machine, starts to wonder if he's some kind of disguised monster in human form. Mid-chow down, Seo Tae-ho catches on that she's not joining the food frenzy. Concerned, he asks why, and she spills the beans about it being ages since she enjoyed a meal with someone. In a moment of generosity, he hands her a bun and urges her to eat faster. In her thoughts, she notes that he gave her just 1 bun despite his mountainous feast, but she's at least grateful for the chance to share a meal with someone. Extending her card to settle the bill, Jeongyeon contemplates whether she should thank Seo Tae-ho. She decides against it, reasoning that she's already footing the bill for his food. Outside, she casually asks if he's full now that lunch is over and mentions she's ready to leave. However, Seo Tae-ho throws a curveball, suggesting they hit the shops post-lunch. She shoots back, questioning his sudden desire to shop. He explains that the clothes across the street catch his eye, even if they aren't his top choice in brands. Annoyed, she asks if he's done and warns him not to disturb her again, expressing her unwillingness to be involved with a monster like him. He presses on, asking if he's supposed to be nice or kneel down and thank her for cleaning his blood. She warns him that if he keeps it up, she won't let him inside in peace. Then, he unexpectedly caresses her hair, claiming that everything he's doing is his way of repaying her. Instead of her killing him, she treated him, that's his rationale. She dismisses it as nothing nice, stating that thanks to him, she even hates her life more. In a sudden turn, he grabs her face, hinting at the idea of cutting her tongue if she can't keep quiet. He gets uncomfortably close, suggesting that if she wants peace and quiet, she might consider it. Snatching the cigarette from her hand, he questions why humans are so stubborn. Trembling, Jeongyeon wonders why, and he grabs her by the waist, asking if they can go now. Now, we shift over to Jeongyeon's place. Popping open the fridge, she's greeted by a surprise feast, a smorgasbord of food items that make her blink in disbelief. The big question looming over her mind is how she ended up in her own house with this unexpected food stash. Her memories hit a blank wall, leaving her puzzled. Trying to retrace her steps, she recalls a beefsteak feast and a heated argument with a guy. Suddenly, panic sets in as she feels an urgent need to rush back home. Thoughts of hypnosis cross her mind, and she grapples with the idea that the man might have done something to her during that chaotic moment. Glancing around, she spots an array of gift bags, filled with things she'd never pick out for herself. The realization hits, whatever he did, it involved splurging on her. Examining her couches laden with these mysterious gifts, she wonders about the extent of his influence on her. Spotting a different brand of cigarettes than her usual, she contemplates what to do with them, concluding it's fine but leaves her questioning their purpose. The idea of asking for a refund crosses her mind, but she dismisses it, realizing that's not an option, especially for the food in her fridge. She resigns to the fact that she'll just have to cook the next day. Jeongyeon stumbles upon another box and, surprise, it's a Galaxy 20, the latest smartphone in town. Her eyes widen in disbelief. She thought she needed an ID or something to snag one of these. Was she manipulated or sleepwalking without realizing it? The mystery deepens, and she's convinced she's been played by the guy. Just as she's pondering this, the phone rings. Startled, she almost drops it but manages to catch it in the nick of time. On the other end, a caller is screaming at her, fuming about her leaving the house empty and totally off the grid. While the woman on the line vents, Jeongyeon can't help but smile, relieved to hear her voice. She explains about the broken phone situation and invites her over to deal with some troubles she's facing. The woman agrees, promising to swing by the next day with homemade kimchi. Checking in on her, she asks if everything's okay, and Jeongyeon spills the beans about getting manipulated into paying for things without her knowledge. She reassures her friend that she'll spill the details later and urges her to take care of her health. After the call, Jeongyeon is left frustrated, wondering if the guy who played her will come knocking again. The next day, Jeongyeon wraps up a solid session in her garden, sweating it out like a champ. Hungry and tired, she heads inside, planning to grab a bite and catch a break. As she steps in, she mutters to herself about cleaning up the dried blood in the reading room. Of course, that troublemaker hasn't shown his face since. According to her, nothing good happens when he swings by. She glances at her fridge and can't help but chuckle. It used to be stocked with water and booze, but now? It's a mini grocery store, loaded with ingredients. There were times when cabbage was the star of her meals, but not anymore. Her thoughts shift to her mother, who battled cancer. Back then, they needed a small army of 5 people to care for her. Jeongyeon had this notion that when her mom passed away, it would be a relief. But before she can dive deeper into that reflection, her eyes catch a small white envelope on the table. Curiosity piqued, she grabs it and opens it up, money and a letter. The note? Sandwich sucks. She scans the room, half expecting to spot a trace of the guy, but nope, he's like a mysterious phantom who leaves money and quirky messages in his wake. In the next scene, Seo Tae-kyung is kicking back at his place, dishing the dirt about his family saga to Jeongyeon. He recalls how he got a gut feeling something was off and ended up playing hero for Tae-ho, a move that earned him the boss badge in the Seo clan. With a serious look, he asks if she's had enough of the story time. Jeongyeon, though, cracks a joke, saying his family history sounds more like a horror flick, and teases him for not giving her a spoiler alert. Jeongyeon, intrigued by the whole affair, wonders if Tae-kyung wasn't a tad too young to be crowned kingpin. He defends his early promotion, explaining that his old man was a bit of a flake, jumping ship right around when his wife was about to pop. When Jeongyeon tries to pry into his lack of wedding bells, he nixes the conversation, agreeing to table the marriage talk for another day. In her own world, Jeongyeon starts to think that maybe Tae-kyung's no-marriage policy isn't just about disliking Chong. She also can't help but wonder how he'll react when he finds out she's been hanging out with his real mother. Just as they're navigating this family soap opera, a dude named Seo Min-jae barges in with some breaking news. A hefty 50 million won has mysteriously disappeared from Taeho's bank account. But there's been no card activity, which makes them think he's gone AWOL. Tae-kyung tells Min-jae to keep his eyes peeled and dig around for any leads. Over at Jeongyeon's place, her aunt is heading out, leaving behind some pearls of wisdom. She tells Jeongyeon to stay healthy, get plenty of sleep, and give her a call if anything goes south. And about the job hunt? If she feels ready to jump back into the grind, just let her know. Once her aunt's gone, Jeongyeon finally exhales. Keeping her smoking habit hidden around her aunt was a tightrope walk, but now that she's got the place to herself, she's ready to light up and relax. She turns on the radio, sinks into her couch, and prepares to chill. But then Tae-ho comes crashing in, catching Jeongyeon off guard. He playfully comments on her bright future and compliments her glowing skin. Annoyed, she asks if he's started using windows as entrances now. Swiftly changing the subject, she brings up the 10 million won sandwich fee. Tae-ho casually says he left it, thinking she might be miffed about the clothes and makeup he charged to her card. True to form, Jeongyeon decides she'll pay him back. But hold up. Tae-ho lets slip that he plans to swing by for snacks occasionally, billing it as a prepaid grub. Jeongyeon, taken aback, asks if he's going to keep popping up. Laughing it off, Tae-ho confirms he'll be back. But Jeongyeon isn't finding it funny. A guy showing up unannounced isn't exactly a laugh riot. As they chat, Tae-ho compliments her music taste, admitting that the song playing isn't really his jam, but his brother's. Jeongyeon is surprised to learn about this mysterious brother. Tae-ho adds that he's the only family he's got and, coincidentally, his brother also enjoys a smoke. Shifting gears, Tae-ho mentions the house's cleanup, noting it's looking much better than before. Jeongyeon's been trying to wrap her head around Seo Tae-ho's sudden pop-ins at her place. She's scratching her head, wondering why he's now part of her weekly schedule. But asking him straight out? Nah, that's not gonna work. Tae-ho's a riddle wrapped in an enigma, and he's probably going to do his own thing, regardless. So, it's a whodunit she's gotta figure out herself. Out of the blue, Tae-ho calls her by name. It's like nails on a chalkboard to her. She immediately fires back, wanting to know how he got that intel. His comeback? A vague maybe from their phone shopping adventure. They decide to grab a bite together, and as they're chilling, Jeongyeon lays down some ground rules, no more random drop-ins, especially now that she's snagged a gig at a magazine publisher. Tae-ho, ever the doubting Thomas, wonders what she's up to there. She hits back, asking if he thinks she's a total dud. His reply? Just a cheeky grin and a cryptic comment that she knows best. Opening up, Jeongyeon shares her reasons for getting back in the game. She can't just coast through life, messing around and munching on snacks. Tae-ho, playing the mysterious benefactor, offers her some dough. She turns it down, saying she's good, but he leaves it on the table anyway. Bluntly, he tells her to quit being so headstrong and that her stubborn pride is just exhausting. Then, he starts giving unasked for advice, suggesting she should hit up a cooking class instead of working at a magazine publisher, because, let's be real, her kitchen skills could use some seasoning. That gets him an earful from Jeongyeon, who tells him to butt out of her life. She draws a line in the sand, warning him not to cross it and that she's not gonna let it slide. In her head, Jeongyeon wonders if Tae-ho has zero manners, and if he looks down on folks. Even if he's human, she's not sure she can see him as one if he keeps poking his nose where it doesn't belong. The room's thick with tension as Tae-ho's words hang in the air. He keeps grinning, seemingly unbothered by Jeongyeon's blow-up. As she heads to her room, her mind's a whirlwind, dealing with the letdown that their buddy-buddy vibe was just him treating her like a toy. The bitter truth leaves her pondering how to untangle herself from this weird bond. Back in her room, Jeongyeon lights up a cigarette, the smoke drifting around her like her jumbled thoughts. She questions what's really going on behind Tae-ho's moves. Is it just a power trip, a complex game where he's holding all the cards? The sting of hurt is real, and she's left wondering how to break free from his pull. In the midst of her mental tug-of-war, her phone rings. It's her uncle, checking in about her job hunt. The chat provides a brief escape from the confusing tug and pull at home. After hanging up, she doubles down on her decision not to rely on anyone, a vow born from past letdowns. When she calls for Tae-ho, expecting to discuss his exit, she's met with an eerie quiet. A suspicious feeling creeps in as she spots a sticky patch on the floor, hinting at a presence that was there, but isn't anymore. Determined to crack the case, she starts searching, her footsteps and the spooky feeling that Tae-ho's mystery has taken another twist. Finding blood only ramps up the intrigue, leaving Jeongyeon with more questions and worry. As she contemplates the significance of this unexpected development, she realizes that Tae-ho's presence, much like his character, remains uncertain. Yeon's spine as she stumbles upon the lifeless form of a dog in her home. The cruel aftermath of an apparent eruption of Tae-ho's wrath leaves her contemplating the eerie nature of his actions. Wrestling with the thought that perhaps her inability to conform to his whims triggered this unsettling display, she refuses to succumb to the psychological torment he seems intent on inflicting. Determined to show resilience, Jeongyeon ventures outside, the weight of the lifeless creature heavy on her heart. A somber burial becomes her chosen act of defiance, a silent protest against the cruelty she refuses to accept. In her reflections, she recognizes the ego-driven nature of Tae-ho's actions, an attempt to assert dominance over someone powerless. As she lays the dog to rest, a resolve solidifies within her, she won't be cowed by his manipulative games. Meanwhile, Tae-ho finds solace in the dimly lit ambience of a bar, the clinking of glasses and murmurs of conversations providing a backdrop to his contemplations. A woman approaches, attempting to engage him in conversation, yet his attention seems elsewhere. With a subtle charm, she questions if she has inadvertently caused any discomfort. Tae-ho, with a nonchalant demeanor, reassures her and extends an invitation for them to leave together, a calculated move in his mind. As they prepare to exit the bar, Tae-ho's thoughts reveal a sinister satisfaction. He relishes the idea of Jeongyeon, at home, confronted with the aftermath of his actions. The contrast between the bar's merriment and Jeongyeon's potential distress paints a chilling picture of Tae-ho's manipulative tendencies, leaving an unsettling air lingering in the narrative. Jeongyeon dives into her first day on the job with a mix of excitement and trepidation. As she is ushered into a private room for her interview, the interviewer reveals that the topic of the day is pets, and they'll be heading to a dog cafe. Her task, capturing the essence of the place through photographs. On the way to the dog cafe, the interviewer casually probes Jeongyeon, inquiring whether she's thrilled about her maiden interview or if, perhaps, she harbors any fears of dogs. Jeongyeon offers reassurance, but a fleeting sadness shadows her expression. Once at the dog cafe, the atmosphere is vibrant with canine companions of all shapes and sizes. Assigned to capture the moment through her lens, Jeongyeon diligently goes about taking pictures. However, a playful puppy, caught off guard, starts barking, leading to a series of unexpected events. In the blink of an eye, a larger dog, brimming with fury, appears and lunges at Jeongyeon. The unexpected attack leaves her in a perilous situation, with no immediate help in sight. The chaotic scene unfolds as those around her scramble to intervene, but not before Jeongyeon loses a significant amount of blood. Baffled and wounded, Jeongyeon wonders if the ferocious dog's assault mirrors a sinister intent, prompting thoughts of Tae-ho and the unsettling incidents in her own home. As her eyes close, the ominous question lingers, was this a mere canine attack or another calculated move in the intricate game she finds herself entangled in? In the quiet hospital room, Jeongyeon's eyelids slowly flutter open, a mix of surprise and confusion reflecting in her eyes as she becomes aware of her surroundings. A soft sob escapes her aunt's lips, tears streaming down her face as she calls out Jeongyeon's name with an underlying worry that's evident in every syllable. Gratefulness fills Jeongyeon as she sees her aunt and uncle standing by her bedside, their concern etched across their faces. She offers a weak smile, apologizing for causing them undue worry. Her uncle, dismissing the importance of work in comparison to her well-being, assures her that the hospital bills have been taken care of. You need to rest, he insists, his voice carrying the weight of genuine concern. However, Jeongyeon, feeling restless, protests that she's okay. Her aunt, wiping away tears, vehemently disagrees, echoing her husband's concern. They place the blame on the dog owner, who, in their eyes, offered feeble excuses for his pet's behavior. Lying back down, Jeongyeon contemplates the source of her recent misfortune, convinced that the underlying cause is not the dog but the enigmatic monster from her home. Fueled by curiosity, she inquires about the man who intervened and saved her. Her uncle's memory seems hazy about the specifics, describing the man's arrival as a stroke of chance. Determined to express her gratitude, Jeongyeon asserts her wish to personally thank the man. Despite her uncle's difficulty in tracing him, she commits to visiting the cafe once her arm has healed. Internally, she harbors a mix of emotions, a longing to see the mysterious man who became her unlikely savior. As she battles the restlessness that comes with idle recovery, Jeongyeon remains resolute. During this time, the dog owner returns to offer apologies, a gesture that adds another layer to the unfolding narrative. Through him, Jeongyeon begins to piece together more about the man who stepped into her life during a critical moment, deepening the mystery surrounding him. Seated in her hospital room, Jeongyeon listens intently as the dog owner recounts the peculiar incident. He vividly remembers the mysterious man who not only possessed a striking handsomeness, but also seemed to evoke an unusual reaction from his usually friendly dog. According to the dog owner, as soon as the enigmatic man entered the scene, an uncanny fear gripped the dog. A creature known for its amicable nature suddenly transformed into a trembling ball of anxiety. The dog owner expresses the oddity of the situation, questioning why his pet, known for being people-friendly, resorted to biting someone when faced with this particular stranger. As the dog owner continues sharing these details, a chilling realization begins to dawn on Jeongyeon. Her mind connects the dots, and she wonders if this peculiar man is the very monster she suspects, the one who invaded her home. The air in the room thickens with the mystery surrounding the man's presence, adding layers to an already strange encounter. Jeongyeon grapples with a mix of fascination and apprehension, eager to uncover more about the handsome stranger whose arrival seemed to disturb the natural order, even unsettling a typically friendly canine companion. In the car, Jeongyeon and her aunt engage in a heartfelt conversation. The aunt suggests that it might be better for Jeongyeon to stay with her since moving around is still a challenge. However, Jeongyeon graciously declines, expressing her discomfort at being a burden. The aunt, caring and concerned, insists that Jeongyeon at least answer her calls to alleviate worry. As they reach Jeongyeon's house, her aunt drops her off and hands her a small box of food. She encourages Jeongyeon to go inside, rest, and assures her that she'll bring the rest of the food into the house. Grateful, Jeongyeon thanks her aunt for the support. In her quiet thoughts, she reflects on her mother's struggles with depression, understanding that her aunt may fear a similar fate for her. Opening her door, Jeongyeon is taken aback when she notices footprints inside her house. Curiosity and concern fill her thoughts as she follows the footprints, leading her to the living room. To her surprise, Seo Tae-ho is sitting casually on the couch. He casually mentions how it's been difficult to catch a glimpse of her lately. The recent traumatic incident at the dog cafe flashes in her mind, amplifying her fear. The unexpected encounter with Tae-ho leaves her on edge, questioning his motives, and the unsettling feeling of having someone in her space without consent. Seo Tae-ho maintains his defiant stance, challenging Jeongyeon's demand for him to leave her home. His audacity seems to grow as he takes note of an unusual odor in the air, an olfactory detail that adds an eerie touch to the confrontation. Despite Jeongyeon's firm stand, Tae-ho exhibits an almost mocking demeanor, displaying an indifference to her frustration. As their verbal spar continues, the tension escalates, and Jeongyeon becomes increasingly exasperated with Tae-ho's unwelcome presence. The conflict takes on a psychological undertone, leaving the reader to ponder the mysterious elements surrounding Tae-ho and his connection to Jeongyeon's life. The situation takes an unexpected turn with the arrival of Jeongyeon's aunt at the front gate. Tae-ho, ever curious, probes into the relationship between Jeongyeon and her aunt, revealing an inquisitiveness that raises more questions about his character. Jeongyeon, however, remains resolute in keeping her personal life guarded, refusing to disclose any information to the enigmatic intruder. The dynamics between the characters become more intricate, adding layers to the narrative. As Jeongyeon opens the door to her aunt, the tension lingers, creating a palpable atmosphere of uncertainty. The aunt, oblivious to the conflict inside, offers her support, expressing concern for Jeongyeon's well-being. Jeongyeon, determined to assert her independence, politely declines her aunt's help, setting the stage for a complex interplay of relationships within the unfolding storyline. Jeongyeon's aunt departs, leaving a sense of melancholy in the air. Despite the evident heartbreak, Jeongyeon finds herself grappling with the urgency of dealing with her unwelcome guest, Seo Tae-ho. Puffing on her cigarette, she contemplates how to rid herself of this menacing presence, recognizing that it's the only way to ensure her aunt's safety. As she re-enters the living room, Tae-ho queries about her aunt's departure and probes into the circumstances that led to her hospitalization. Unwilling to share any details with him, Jeongyeon's apprehension intensifies when he breaks into laughter. Her fears seem validated, and a surge of disgust washes over her as she reflects on the time spent in close quarters with this ominous figure. In a fit of anger and desperation, Jeongyeon hurls her bag at Tae-ho, goading him to end her life. To her surprise, instead of fulfilling her plea, he opts for a different form of cruelty. Seizing her by the neck, he forcefully slams her against the wall, demanding that she beg for her life. Refusing to succumb to his sadistic whims, she defiantly rejects his demand, insisting that she won't plead for mercy from someone so reprehensible. Tae-ho, revealing his feral side with teeth bared, proclaims his noble lineage as a direct descendant of the esteemed Seo family. He sinks his teeth into Jeongyeon, marking her with a bite, a macabre gesture that intertwines her fate with the enigmatic history of the Seo family. In a chilling twist, Seo Tae-kyung enters the scene accompanied by Seo Min-jae. Shocked at the sight of Jeongyeon sprawled on the floor amid the disarray, Seo Min-jae questions their next course of action. Tae-kyung, maintaining an air of authority, decides that they must transport her to the main family. At Minho's place, he dials up the family doctor, Seo Jeongyeon, offering a quick sorry for the short notice. He lays it out, there's a situation. Dr. Jeongyeon, cool as a cucumber, remarks on the unexpected nature of the chairman biting a woman. But Seo Tae-kyung stays mute, his silence screaming loyalty as he's set on shielding his brother. The doctor chimes in, noting that she seems like she's been on her own for a stretch, but is hanging in there, thanks to some serious willpower. Seo Min-jae, lost in thought, directs his frustration at Tae-ho for stirring up trouble and leaving his brother to clean up the mess. Dr. Jeongyeon dishes out some advice to Tae-kyung, saying he should handle her with care, like he's the protector. Tae-kyung nods, understanding the delicate situation. Then, with a confident air, Min-jae thanks the doctor for his efforts and lets him off the hook. Once they're out of the scene, he ditches his suit jacket, settling in close to her. Recalling the doctor's advice on how to handle the situation, he gently pulls her into an embrace. Comforting words spill from his lips, assuring her that things will get better soon. He can't help but admire her strength, throwing in a compliment for good measure. In this quiet moment, he makes a promise, he'll stick by her side. Later that day, Jeongyeon stirs awake, finding him way too close for comfort. Taekyung quickly reassures her it's all good, nothing sketchy going on. She shoots him a puzzled look, wondering why she's ended up here. Suddenly, she's hit with a wave of pain, her body shivering uncontrollably. He jumps into action, holding her close and urging her to chill out, praising her for handling it like a champ. With confusion in her eyes, she asks the big question, who is he and why is he helping her? Min-jae lays it out straight, promising to stick around and take care of her as she goes through this metamorphosis journey. Confusion clouds her mind as she questions what he's going on about, baffled by the lack of info from his brother. Min-jae, sensing her need for rest, promises to spill the beans once she's back on her feet. To keep her spirits up, he offers to hold her hand, knowing she needs all the energy she can get. In a moment of clarity, she asks if he's the hero who rescued her, managing to share her name before drifting off into unconsciousness. Jeongyeon tosses and turns in her sleep. Taekyung, being the nice guy he is, tries to soothe her by gently patting her head. It seems to work. She wakes up, looking relieved that the fever has gone. Taekyung is obviously happy about it, running his fingers through her hair. But when Jeongyeon touches his face, he's taken aback, surprised by the sudden contact. She quickly says sorry, thinking it was all a dream because there was this random guy, him, next to her. And then, she freaks out, admitting she can't remember anything. Taekyung reassures her, telling her how he found her passed out and brought her to his place. He even introduces himself as Seo Taekyung and tells her she's at his house. Jeongyeon is shocked, finding out she'd been unconscious for 10 days. She gets up, worried about her family. Taekyung calms her down, saying he's already called her uncle. When she asks how, he admits he had to use her phone, apologizing if that wasn't cool. He suggests she relax and recover, promising to make her something to eat. As Taekyung leaves, Jeongyeon feels something strange whenever she sees him. She stops him before he opens the door, saying she's not hungry yet. He jokingly asks if she's scared of being alone, but she confesses she doesn't know why she's acting weird around him. She bluntly asks who he really is, and he replies, asking if she'd be satisfied if he said he was Seo Tae-ho. She then asks for a cigarette, which he gives her after checking if she's okay with his brand. She wonders why he looked surprised when she asked for one, and he says he didn't expect it. She then asks if Tae-ho asked him to save her, but he says he just found her while looking for his brother. When he asks if she wishes Tae-ho had saved her, she firmly says no and apologizes for any misunderstandings. He brushes it off, saying Tae-ho should be the one saying sorry. She wants to know the whole story, worried that Tae-ho might claim he was trying to rescue her and make her forgive him. But Taekyung assures her he won't let that happen. He tells her he brought her here to keep her safe, and he won't let Tae-ho near her. The next day, Taekyung's hanging out with Jeongyeon. She can't help but notice how busy he seems, but hey, he's always there for her, no matter what. It's kinda nice, him saying he'll stick around until she's through this whole metamorphosis thing. She tests the waters, wondering if he's just talking big about being there for her. She notices that when he's not around, the pain creeps back in, making her feel all jittery. So, she calls him up and asks if there's a quicker way to get over this than the 3 days he mentioned. His reply throws her off a bit. He wants to know if his presence is bothering her, or if she'd rather be in a different room. She fumbles a bit, assuring him that it's just the uncomfortable bed that's bugging her. He tells her to spit it out, saying he's worried seeing someone as young as her looking so weak. She's taken aback by his observation. She may be in a bad state, but she's still got her voice. She then teases him, saying he sounds like an old man. He comes clean, admitting he's actually older than she thought. She's surprised to find out he's 12 years older than Tae-ho. He tells her their kind lives longer. She figures she can blame him for everything Tae-ho did to her. When she accuses him of barely saving her life, he owns up to it, even if she doesn't want to hear it. He suggests they change rooms. As they move, she stumbles a bit, and he asks if she feels weird walking. She snaps back, asking if they can now read minds too. He reassures her, telling her not to worry about turning into one of them. He tries to spin it positively, telling her to think of it as her body getting stronger. She's not convinced, commenting on how he's trying to sugarcoat the monster she's becoming. He insists that she's different. He asks if she can trust him. Internally, she tells herself not to. He's the brother of the monster who bit her. Yet, she finds herself getting drawn in. She wonders if he's looking out for her, or if he'll flip on her like his brother did. He tells her that she's part of his clan now, and as the family head, it's his duty to take care of her. He even apologizes for his brother's actions. She loses it, screaming at him about how he knew what his brother did and how his apologies mean nothing. Feeling pain in her neck, she stumbles. He tells her not to push herself too much since she's still recovering. Suddenly, Seo Min-jae rushes in, calling for Taekyung. But Taekyung quickly sends him away. Taekyung pulls Jeongyeon into a hug, apologizing for the interruption and promising to only visit when she's in danger or trouble. Inside, she wonders if maybe it'd be better if he wasn't so nice to her. Jeongyeon's taking a leisurely walk around the Seo mansion's sprawling garden, soaking up the greenery. The room she's been shacked up in is enormous, and she can't help but wonder if Taekyung set it up special for her, or if that's just how the Seos roll. As much as she appreciates the tranquil garden, it's also kind of overwhelming. She runs her fingers over her hand, where her surgery scar used to be. Gone now, it's a stark reminder of all that's changed since her metamorphosis. She's enjoying the tranquility of the Seo family garden when Seo Maihai comes in, breaking the silence. Noticing Jeongyeon's recovery, Maihai casually introduces herself and asks if she's a fan of the garden. With a friendly smile, Maihai invites Jeongyeon to her room, hinting that she has some juicy info to share. Intrigued, Jeongyeon follows Maihai, curious about what secrets might spill during this unexpected meetup. On their way to the room, Maihai breaks the ice by asking how Jeongyeon's doing. She jokes that during their first meeting, Jeongyeon looked like she was on death's door. Jeongyeon, grateful for her improved condition, reassures Maihai that she's doing okay. Stepping into Maihai's room, it's clear that this space serves a dual purpose. It's not just a living space, but also Maihai's office. Maihai takes a moment to show off her interior design skills, making Jeongyeon feel at home. The promise of coffee lingers as Maihai heads off to brew a pot. As she waits for Maihai's return, Jeongyeon can't shake off a sense of anticipation about the upcoming chit-chat. Maihai comes back with steaming cups of coffee, kicking off a conversation around the peculiar phenomenon of metamorphosis. Maihai, all smiles, tells Jeongyeon that she wanted to cheer her up during this rare and significant event. The chat soon veers towards the elusive Taeho, leaving Jeongyeon wondering why everyone seems to apologize for him when he shows no signs of remorse. In an unexpected twist, Maihai pulls out a business card from her purse. It belongs to a lawyer. Handing it to Jeongyeon, she leaves a question hanging in the air: can Jeongyeon trust her now? Maihai, who happens to be a lawyer, decides to give Jeongyeon the 411 on the Seo clan. Leaning on her cute little cane, she starts scribbling on a whiteboard. She's determined to squash any rumors that the Seos are some sort of creepy cult. Nope, they're just like everyone else, with 47 of them working as legal eagles and 59 as doctors. They're really making their mark in the world. Maihai makes it clear that they're not part of any vampire or cannibal club. To back up her point, she dishes out some inside scoop about Chairman Taekyung. The guy's not just a bigwig in the family, he's also juggling finances at a construction firm, doing his bit for the community. And what about Taeho? Jeongyeon wonders. Well, Maihai reveals, he's in charge of importing cosmetics for a trading company. Just as Jeongyeon's getting ready to call it a day and head home, Maihai drops more knowledge bombs. She seems puzzled that Jeongyeon isn't more curious about all this. With a twinkle in her eye, she hands Jeongyeon a book, which turns out to be more than just a page-turner. Hidden inside the book is some emergency cash, along with a bunch of business cards from lawyers, doctors, and police officers. Manhwa explains that while their bodies have super healing powers, Jeongyeon, being a former human, might need a bit more time to bounce back. The money and contacts are there to make sure she's got all the help she needs during this transition. Jeongyeon puts two and two together and asks if Taekyung had a similar setup. Manhwa nods, revealing Taekyung's role as the head honcho of the clan. She seizes the opportunity to introduce the family tree, a lineage that goes back a cool 1,000 years. In this clan, the family head, symbolized by a lion, is the big kahuna. Taekyung, being the current head, is the top dog. Jeongyeon isn't convinced about Taekyung's boss-like nature, but Manhwa points out that his soft side is reserved for her. When he's mad, Taekyung's vibe alone can knock out clan members, and for humans, it's game over instantly. Manhwa assures Jeongyeon that compared to other family heads, Taekyung is pretty beefy. As Jeongyeon tries to wrap her head around all this, she asks if there are more like them out there. Manhwa spills that they're everywhere, anytime, and Jeongyeon will get to meet them soon. And with that, Manhwa wraps up her intro class and welcomes Jeongyeon to the club, congratulating her on shedding her human limits and officially becoming part of their clan. It's a bit of a tense vibe over at the CO house. Mr. Yu is having a serious chat with Taekyung, and so CO is there too. The room might be fancy, but the conversation is anything but light. Soa, even though she looks a bit older, is handling herself like a pro. It's clear she's a big deal when it comes to family stuff and dealing with outside folks. Taekyung gives Mr. Yu a nod of thanks for coming over, then jumps straight into the touchy subject of Mr. Yu's daughter and her new baby. But things get a bit sticky when Mr. Yu starts questioning Taeho's loyalty. Taekyung stands up for his bro, stressing how happy Taeho's wife was before everything went south. Suddenly, Mr. Yu throws a curveball into the convo. He's worried about some sort of curse in the Seo family, where their daughter-in-laws seem to have a hard time after having babies. Taekyung brushes this off, saying it's all just a coincidence and pushing back on the whole superstition thing. Then, enter Miss Soa, who adds a new twist to the discussion. She's all grace and confidence, trying to ease Mr. Yu's worries. She talks about Taeho's married life, focusing on the happiness they had while waiting for their baby. In the fancy room at the CO house, Mr. Yu's visit is making things feel pretty serious and uncomfortable. They start talking about the sad situation with Taeho and Mr. Yu's daughter, revealing a whole mess of family drama and doubts. Mr. Yu doesn't mince words, spelling out his doubts about Taeho marrying his daughter. Recognizing the loss both families have gone through, Mr. Yu hints that even Taekyung might have had doubts about the match. Things take a wild turn when a guard spills some beans about Taeho's behavior after the tragedy. Apparently, Taeho's been visiting various women's homes, scared of being tracked. This adds a whole new layer of mystery and questions about what's going on in his head. In the middle of all this tension, Mr. Yu asks Taekyung if he can be frank, expressing his concerns about Taeho's dependability. He points out Taeho's knack for lying and shirking responsibility when things get tough. The room gets even more tense as Mr. Yu announces his plan to dig deep into Taeho's actions. Talking straight to Taekyung, Mr. Yu lays out his investigation plan. Taeho's future is up in the air. If he's innocent, they'll chalk up the tragedy to bad luck. But if they find him guilty, Mr. Yu warns that Taeho could end up like his daughter. In Jong's room, the rain is tapping away at the windows, giving her a bit of cabin fever. The drizzle takes her back to the day Taeho came into her life, making her hate this kind of weather even more. She's been in the big CO family house for a week now, and she's starting to feel like their whole "we're a family" vibe is just a front. She gets the feeling that they're all acting chummy but don't really mean it. It's like they're trying to keep her under their thumb and would force her back if she tried to make a run for it. This makes her question whether they're truly being familial or just putting on an act. Needing a break from all the drama, Jeongyeon decides to lose herself in some tunes. But no matter how hard she tries, thoughts of Taekyung keep popping up, messing with her head. She's annoyed at herself for possibly catching feelings for him. Not finding any peace in her room, Jong decides to go back to her old habit, lighting up a cigarette. Wanting to get away from the stuffy vibe, she goes outside, where the smell of rain and traces of Taekyung are still lingering. Feeling a bit rebellious and curious, she sneaks into his room and swipes a pack of smokes, sure he won't notice one missing. As she walks around the fancy mansion, Jeongyeon starts to question whether Taekyung really meant it when he told her to make herself at home. Being alone in such a plush place only makes her feel more isolated, forcing her to deal with her mixed emotions amid the storm. Lost in her thoughts, Jeongyeon imagines Taekyung showing up. In her daydream, he's holding her close, his touch lingering on her lips. This unexpected fantasy frustrates her, and she throws her cigarette away. Once the smoke clears, she starts talking to herself, wondering if she's going crazy. Reality and her imagination start to blur after her daydream. She denies being in love, telling herself that the fantasy was just her mind messing with her. In this moment of solitude, she's trying to figure out what she really wants, freedom or the mystery man who's always on her mind. The memory of Taekyung's imagined touch stays with her, forcing her to face the confusing reality of what's real and what's just in her head. Meanwhile, Taekyung is sitting in his office, reminiscing about something that happened 4 years ago. The woman sitting across from him, oozing charm and elegance, starts chatting about how nice his house is. Taekyung thanks her, happy she's there. Their conversation has a bit of a flirtatious vibe, hinting at something more than just a business meeting. But Taekyung, always the professional, steers the conversation back on track. He wants to get to the point of her visit, showing he's onto her game. Caught off guard, the woman asks why he's suddenly changed the tune of their chat. Taekyung, calm but firm, tells her he knows she's trying to use her family's influence subtly. This adds a bit of tension to the room, suggesting there's some history between them. And then, out of nowhere, Taekyung calls her mom. Next, we meet Jeongyeon, the lively mom and proud member of the famous Jeong family. She's having a chat with her son, Taekyung, and they end up in a friendly spat about whether he looks like her side of the family. Taekyung thinks she's pulling his leg and laughs it off. Jeong doesn't let him have the last word. She brings up their family history, telling him a cool story about an old family leader who was known as the Iron Recluse despite his good looks. Interestingly, Taekyung seems to share some of these traits. Jeong teases him that he's just like this person from their past. To back up what she's saying, Jeong talks about another important family member, her brother, who's currently leading the Jeong family. She suggests that Taekyung is a lot like these powerful ancestors, whether he realizes it or not. Taekyung, getting more confused by Jeong's cryptic comments, decides to ask her straight up what she's trying to say with all these family stories. Jeong, grinning, answers her son's question. She insists that Taekyung is much more like his dad, the former family leader, than he is like Taeho. Taekyung, annoyed, isn't keen on the idea of being compared to someone he doesn't admire. The chat gets a bit more intense when Jeong shares her negative thoughts about Taeho. She describes him as a copy of his dad, irresponsible, self-centered, and not too smart. She's smiling, but it's clear she doesn't think highly of him. Jeong mentions she's heard about Taeho's recent troubles, and jokes that maybe she should cheer him up while she's there. Taekyung, not amused, politely shuts down her idea. Deciding to get to the point, Taekyung asks Jeong why she's really there. Jeong, a bit miffed by his directness, shoots back that it sounds like he wants her to state her business and leave. She brushes off his blunt question, saying she came to see him. Taekyung isn't convinced and doubts she's there just for him. Jeong then reveals she knows about Taekyung's new girlfriend, a human he turned himself. She teases him, pointing out that even though their family is known for keeping secrets, a mom always wants to know about her son's love life. She excitedly asks when he's going to introduce his new lady to the family. But Taekyung stands his ground, insisting his girlfriend is his business, and he doesn't see why Jeong needs to meet her. Jeong, frustrated with her son's secrecy, angrily puts her teacup down. The conversation takes a serious turn as she confronts him about turning a human and what it means for their people. Taekyung assures her he can keep her safe and, if needed, wipe her memories. Surprised, Jeong asks if Taekyung is in love with this human woman. Taekyung, staying cool, denies having any romantic feelings, pointing out the issues with bringing a human into their supernatural world. Things take another unexpected turn when Ah-hyung, who seemed uninterested in talking about love, suddenly offers to find a wife for Taekyung. Taekyung, confused, asks who she thinks would be a good match. Ah-hyung reveals her matchmaking ambitions, suggesting Chong of the Jean family as the ideal match for Taekyung. Meanwhile, Jeongyeon's hanging out in Taekyung's room, sipping some tea. She sees him looking all thoughtful and asks, "What's up, Taekyung?" She wonders if she should come back later, but decides to ask, "Is now a good time?" Taekyung snaps out of his daydream and tells her it's cool. He heard from the housekeeper that she's thinking of going home. She nods, confirming the gossip. Even though Maihai told him not to worry, Taekyung can't help but feel a bit unsure. Jeongyeon isn't the type to trust people easily. She's tough and tends to overthink things. But Taekyung finds her strong-willed nature intriguing. It makes him want to earn her trust even more. He wonders if erasing her memory could have made their bond stronger, going beyond just being siblings. Taekyung shakes off his thoughts and reminds Jeongyeon that he offered to help her go home if she wanted. He's relieved that the transformation worked. She asks if she can leave right away, probably wanting to get back to her own life. He agrees to arrange a car for her by tomorrow. He let her family know she'd be at a recovery center for a couple of weeks. They weren't thrilled, but he managed to assure them everything was okay. Jeongyeon is shocked by this news and jumps up, exclaiming, "What?" Taekyung quickly calms her down, explaining that he just told her family she was safe. He gives her his personal number and tells her to call if she needs anything. Then he suggests she get some rest. As he's about to leave, she stops him with a question about the dog incident. She thanks him for saving her life, catching him off guard. She's not sure if she's right about him being her savior. Taekyung says it was Taeho who saved her and apologizes for what she went through. He warns her that Taeho might show up again and tells her to mention his name if that happens. As he leaves, he hopes they'll meet again. She wishes him well, leaving a sense of connection between them. After leaving the room, Taekyung feels frustrated. He can't figure out why he can't control his feelings around her. He remembers his mom's words about the Yoon family and wonders if he's falling for Jeongyeon. Is it love or just an obsession? He's not sure, but he can't shake off the thought. Okay, so he knows he's gonna find out eventually, right? But the thing that's really messing with his head is that his feelings might be a whole lot messier than he thought. Then there's Daewon-yu, Myung Sung-yu's cousin and the go-to guy in the family. He's got a bone to pick with Taeho, and he's on a manhunt. He finds him hanging out at a club, and boy, is he ticked off. He's practically growling, thinking about how much trouble this guy's caused. Daewon's mind wanders back to Ma Young-hee, his cousin, who was practically his big sister even though she was only 6 months older. She was his rock, his sunshine, his everything. Losing her hurt like nothing else, and he can't shake her memory. The Yu family always treated their girls like queens, and Ma Young-hee was the princess of the bunch. Her special bond with the family leader made her loss even more tragic. Daewon can't forget that awful day when she was brutally attacked without any chance to fight back. That memory haunts him, fueling his need to find Taeho and make him pay. As he steps into the club, he's a whirlwind of emotions, mad, sad, and hell-bent on getting justice. Every step towards Taeho reminds him of the deep loss he's carrying. Daewon's on a mission, filled with rage, sorrow, and a burning desire for revenge. He's haunted by memories of his sister, Ma Young-hee. Her cruel death cut him deep. Leaving the club, he feels annoyed that he couldn't let all his anger out. He's holding back because he needs to gather evidence against Taeho. Each step feels heavy, burdened with the responsibility of a personal mission that's also about his family's honor. As he trails Taeho through the city, he's juggling a lot. He's got his family loyalty, his thirst for revenge, and the looming threat of a clan war. It's like he's walking on a tightrope as he hunts for clues to help their cause. He's sniffing around like a bloodhound, knowing that any evidence could spark a clash between the Yu and Seo clans. He sharpens his senses, hoping to find something that could bring Taeho to justice and give his family some peace. When he gets to an apartment building, he wrinkles his nose at the stench of the Seo family. The smell brings back memories of their long-standing rivalry and fires up his resolve. He takes a deep breath, convinced that even the woman inside reeks of the Seo family. His mind starts going down a dark path as he wonders if the woman might be Taeho's mistress. The chance for revenge is hanging there, ripe for the picking. Daewon can almost taste the sweet satisfaction of settling the score. In Taekyung's dream, he sees his dad's ghost. It's a pretty intense situation that shows the rocky relationship they had. The dream is full of memories of their physical fights, which have left a big mark on Taekyung. In the dream, Taekyung stands up to his dad. You can feel the weight of their past clashes in the air. Taekyung stays cool and tells his dad that he's not responsible for what Taeho did after he killed the last clan leader. His words are tinged with bitterness, hinting at years of pent-up feelings and a longing for closure. Surprisingly, Taekyung chooses not to get revenge. He could have messed up their family ties, but instead he goes for a more peaceful approach. He decides to let his dad go and move on. It's a powerful moment in the dream, showing Taekyung's decision to make things right. But the dream takes a turn when Taekyung's dad refuses to accept this peace. Taekyung gets frustrated, wondering why his dad can't just let things be. Wasn't killing his grandpa enough? The dream becomes a nightmare, showing how their family problems keep repeating themselves. When Taekyung wakes up, he feels like he's been through a war. When he wakes up, Taekyung is annoyed by the wind blowing outside. To chill out, he decides to have a smoke. But when he looks in his drawer, his cigarettes are gone. Confused, he starts thinking about who else in the house might smoke. Then he remembers Jeongyeon also smokes. He thinks about this shared habit, finding it kind of interesting. It's a small thing, but it links them together in a weird way. He blushes a little, focusing on the last cigarette left. So, Taeho's at this bustling club, chilling with a lovely lady. But then Min-jae walks in, and you can tell the vibe changes. Taeho looks a bit surprised and not too thrilled about Min-jae showing up. Taeho greets Min-jae, but admits he's not happy to see him. You can feel some tension in the room, it's clear there's some history between these two guys. But Min-jae doesn't let Taeho's cold welcome bother him. He gets straight to the point, telling Taeho it's time to go home and that he's here to take him back. Min-jae locks eyes with Taeho and notices something familiar about his gaze. It's just as intense as it was 10 years ago. In the noisy club, Taeho asks Min-jae where Taekyung is. Min-jae tells him Taekyung's by himself tonight. In his head, Min-jae pictures Taeho like a mischievous kid, sneaking out while his big brother isn't around, even flirting with a human woman while on the run. But Min-jae brings Taeho back to reality, saying now's not the time for fun. The Yu family's after him, after all. They argue a bit, with Min-jae blaming Taeho and insisting it's not his fault. Taeho gets annoyed and says it's not his fault either, but Min-jae drops a bomb. The Yu family thinks Taeho killed Lady Yu, his wife, but not for the reasons they think. Min-jae tells Taeho that the chairman's worried and wants him to come home ASAP. But Taeho doesn't want to be cooped up by his brother. Taeho's caught off guard when Min-jae mentions Jeongyeon Choi. He's surprised and asks Min-jae how he knows about her. He sounds worried when he asks if something bad happened to her. But Min-jae reassures him that Jeongyeon is okay and was saved by the chairman. Taeho relaxes and even laughs a little, saying he knew Jeongyeon wouldn't go down without a fight. But then Min-jae says something that ticks Taeho off. He gets angry and demands to know why Taekyung interfered, especially since Taeho was the one who bit her. He claims that her fate should be up to him, not anyone else. We shift gears to when Chong hits the ripe age of 12. She's always got her head in the clouds, dreaming up scenes straight out of a fairy tale. Think tiny seeds sprouting into juicy fruits, sunshine so bright it practically dances, and Chong snuggling up to her dad like it's the most natural thing in the world. In a spring morning like any other, young Chong's mind takes an unexpected turn. Instead of her usual whimsical dreams, she finds herself envisioning something entirely new, being wed to the most formidable guy around, ruling as his partner in crime. Fast forward to the present moment, and Chong finds herself deep in conversation with Ah Hyun-young, affectionately known as Taekyung's mom. They're catching up over tea, sharing thoughts and laughs. Jeongyeon mentions how it would have been nice if Taekyung could join them, but he's swamped lately, barely able to catch a breath with all he's got going on. She promises to drag him along next time, once he's got a bit more breathing room. Chong spills the tea, revealing she's got the scoop on Taeho's recent adventures. Word on the street is that Lady Yu, Taeho's other half, is like the poster child for virtue. Yet, Chong can't help but wonder if maybe she lacked the horsepower to handle the Seo family circus from day one. What really rattles her teacup, though, is the bombshell that Taeho walked down the aisle before his elder bro, the family bigwig. As they chat, Jeongyeon can't help but play the what-if game in her mind. She wonders aloud if maybe she and Taekyung should have taken the plunge first, despite finding even the most cunning characters in their circle charming. Curious, she turns the tables on Chong, asking how she'd handle Taeho if she were in her shoes. Chong's response is a mix of practicality and mischief. She questions how she could meddle with the clan leader's responsibilities, but if push came to shove, she'd consider a bold move, capturing him and handing him over to the Yu family. Jeongyeon, taking a thoughtful sip of her tea, remarks on the chilly vibe Chong throws Taeho's way. Chong coolly declares that Taeho is more of a nuisance than family. She brushes off the familial ties, claiming trouble for the clan leader spells trouble for everyone. Jeong, taking a sip of her tea, suggests Taekyung might not be thrilled to hear such a blunt assessment, given his deep care for his troublesome brother. Chong, with a confident smile, assures Jeong that in the future, Taekyung will likely hold her in higher regard as his wife compared to Taeho. However, the mood shifts when Jeong drops a slightly irritating bomb. There's a rumor swirling around that Taekyung has found himself a special someone. Chong's eyes widen, and she can't help but slap her hand on the table. In a mix of surprise and concern, she questions whether Taekyung declared this mystery woman as his future wife, making her wonder if he deemed her unworthy. Jeong shoots Chong a reassuring smile, telling her to chill, because she's only dealing with a regular human woman. Relieved, Chong admits she was taken aback, firmly believing that no mere mortal could ever measure up to her. Lightening the mood, she accuses Jeong of teasing her too much. In response, Jeong grins and says Chong's reactions are just too entertaining to pass up. Jeong confidently declares that she's pretty certain, especially after the chaos caused by Taeho, the elders will be firmly on her side. She believes Taekyung will have no other option but to tie the knot with her. Expressing her excitement, Chong shares that making Taekyung her husband has been her dream ever since she watched him blossom into an adult. Grateful to Jeong, she acknowledges that it's all coming true, and she's destined to become his wife. Jeong chuckles, noting that the kind of confidence Chong exudes is exactly what she'd expect from the girl she's given the nod of approval. In her thoughts, Jeong admires the princess, recognizing a tenacity that runs even deeper than it appears. She acknowledges that Chong, thrown into the chaotic sea of the Jean family's clanswomen, managed to crush the competition and rise to the top. She's confident that Chong is the real deal, a genuine clanswoman who can navigate the craziness of the Seo family. She predicts that Chong will only get stronger from here on, whether it's in terms of bloodline or status. In her musings, she asserts that no other clanswoman even comes close to matching her. Yet, there's a curious wonder about how her dear son will react. Jeong, contemplating the future, suggests they see if Taekyung can handle keeping that human woman around after this revelation. In Jeongyeon's house, in her room, she takes a drag from her cigarette, exhaling smoke as she reflects on her body. She casually mentions how it's become a breeze to manage. No matter how much she drinks, she just can't seem to get drunk. Even skipping meals doesn't faze her hunger pangs. It's like her body has transformed into this empty shell, devoid of its usual sensations. She shoots a glance at the wall clock. It's a whopping 6 a.m, and she realizes she hasn't caught a wink of sleep. Strangely, tiredness is nowhere in sight. She ponders if easy is the wrong word for her body's peculiar state. Her days feel unnecessarily stretched out, and now that she reflects on it, this might just be the most free time she's ever had in her entire life. Her father's passing left a giant crack in her family, and she's pretty sure her soul made a sneaky escape through that gap, turning her into this hollow shell of a person. It's as if the essence of who she was slipped away, leaving behind an emptiness that's hard to shake. Her door creaks open suddenly, and in walks Jeongyeon, asking why she seems startled. He reminds her of their vow to meet again. She hasn't spent the day smoking and drinking alone, or has she? The room lights up, and she calls out his name, wondering if he's here to see her. Alas, it's just another one of her illusions playing tricks on her. She wonders why she's always anticipating his visits when, in reality, she's the one who walked away. He once explained these illusions as some kind of imprint, suggesting that since she was reborn with a boost from his energy, she might feel an unusual closeness or dependency on him. But she's not entirely convinced. Is he seriously implying that this is just a reflex, like when a duckling latches onto the first thing it sees? She's uncertain about his feelings, and what she's going through can't be neatly summed up with a single word. Oddly, the more she tries to scrub him from her thoughts, the more vivid he becomes. At this pace, it feels like the hidden beast lurking in her subconscious is gearing up to make an unwelcome appearance. Taeho never scared her, she even allowed him to stroll into her place and create chaos. But now, she slams her hand down, realizing why she let it happen. Deep down, all she wanted was someone to stick around, to be by her side because, truth be told, she's been grappling with loneliness. It's a profound kind of solitude that not even a close call with death managed to shake off. Back then, she didn't care who it was, anyone would do to fill the void by her side. But things have changed. It's not just about anyone anymore. Now, she's specific, she wants Taekyung to be the one by her side. Flashback to when Taekyung questions if her recent revelation alters anything. Despite the realization, she insists that, fundamentally, she's like a lifeless being in the void, anticipating death. She screams, refuting the idea, insisting it was never that way. Tears streaming down her face, she confesses that deep down, she yearned to live too. In the present, she declares she can't revert to the old ways, not after savoring the sweetness of being held by someone, feeling their warmth. There's an undeniable yearning, she craves the sensation of touching him, she wants him, and more than ever, she needs him. Back at Taekyung's house, in his room, he ponders if the emotions he's feeling are coming from Jeongyeon. Is it some byproduct of their connection through the transmutation? There's a hint of sweetness to it, and a smile creeps onto his face as he wonders if, just maybe, she's waiting for him. Days later, Jeongyeon makes a pit stop at her auntie's place. The surprise on her cousin Suyeon's face is evident as she dials up her mom to come check out Jeongyeon's sudden visit. Suyeon can't help but blurt out how stunning Jeongyeon looks, prompting her mom to give the green light for her to come in. The aunt, upon seeing Jeongyeon, gently touches her face, expressing the concern she felt when she heard about Jeongyeon's hospital stint. But now, seeing a bit of life back in her face, she's visibly relieved. Suyeon, with a touch of awe, runs her fingers over Jeongyeon's hand, remarking on how soft it feels now, quite a contrast from the roughness they used to have. Her mom, chiming in, playfully scolds Suyeon about manners, pointing out that the roughness was a result of Jeongyeon's hard work. She emphasizes that taking care of a sick person isn't exactly a walk in the park. Her aunt then inquires about how Jeongyeon is feeling and if the doctor mentioned any specific things to watch out for. Jeongyeon shrugs it off, saying not really, she's back to feeling like her usual self and is doing just fine. Plus, the doctor said there's no need for a follow-up visit. Her aunt's surprise quickly turns into concern as she asks for the doctor's name, suggesting she might accompany Jeongyeon for another consultation, just to be safe. Jeongyeon casually mentions that the doctor was a referral from a friend, admitting she can't recall his name. Her aunt, in disbelief, exclaims at the revelation that she's been attending checkups without even knowing her doctor's name. She playfully threatens Jeongyeon, saying if she keeps it up, she might just force her to move in. Her aunt expresses relief, thanking goodness a man reached out to them. Perplexed, Jeongyeon inquires about this mystery man. Her aunt reveals it's none other than Mr. Taekyung Seo. He took the initiative to inform them about her hospital admission and expressed genuine concern about her well-being. Her aunt insists that Jeongyeon should make sure to thank him the next time they cross paths, emphasizing that he seemed like a genuinely nice man. In her thoughts, Jeongyeon reflects that Taekyung handled numerous things, all for her sake. She acknowledges that if he hadn't saved her that day, she probably wouldn't be experiencing the simple joys of a normal day like this one. Jeongyeon heads out early, eager to browse for a used car. The excitement peaks when she finally seals the deal on her new set of wheels. It's a purchase she didn't anticipate making, especially after parting with her previous car to cover her mom's hospital bills. A lot has shifted post-transmutation, including herself, both internally and externally. Did she become prettier? Nah, it's not about being prettier, it's more about gaining a newfound confidence after carving out a life for herself. Right now, she feels like she could tackle anything. In the past, she never needed much, just sufficient clothes to breeze through each season and a cozy coat for winter. Makeup was never on her radar before, time was a luxury she couldn't afford. However, things have changed. No more sulking around the house, wondering about the inevitable arrival of death. Now, she's determined to show Taekyung that she's thriving. In a moment of frustration, she catches herself thinking about him again. She reasons that it should be okay, after all, he can't pick up on her every little thought. Spotting a limited edition lighter, her mind immediately links it to Taekyung, disregarding the fact that he likely has a collection of lighters. But still, she decides to grab it. Examining the gift in her hands, she finds herself mulling over the fact that he's not her boyfriend. The whole boyfriend idea keeps lingering in her thoughts. She ponders whether things would be less tense if he were, letting the notion swirl in her mind. Selecting a music cassette, she notes that it's Taekyung's favorite. Determined, she decides to make plans to see him and hand over the gift she just bought. However, reality sets in, she realizes it's not feasible. In his eyes, she's merely another clanswoman for him to look after. Driving later that night, she mutters to herself that it's been a while since she's been out for this long, finding it a bit tiring. Just as she's about to finish her thought, she spots a peculiar man in front of her car. The person then throws a question her way, asking if she knows Taeho. The strange guy is undoubtedly not human. Gripping the steering wheel, she questions who he is, fear flickering in her eyes. The thought crosses her mind, did Taeho send him? She urges herself to calm down, reasoning that he would never do such a thing. When she looks up again, there's nobody in sight, he's disappeared. Stepping out of her car, she mutters about needing to get inside before the mysterious guy returns. Hastily, she dashes indoors, slamming the door behind her. In a moment of self-reassurance, she reminds herself to breathe. After all, with Taekyung around, there's no way Taeho would dare pull anything, or perhaps, she considers, she might have just been imagining things. A sudden jolt runs through her as she spots him outside. Fear grips her, and she instinctively covers her mouth. The realization hits, she wasn't imagining it, that man followed her home. Questions race through her mind. Why is he just standing there? He gives off a vibe like he could easily break in if he wanted to. The unsettling thought crosses her mind, what if Taekyung sent him? He does seem like the type who might deploy a bodyguard. Considering the possibility, she thinks she might get an update on Taekyung from him. In an attempt to calm herself down, she decides to approach and talk to him. Stepping outside, she meets his gaze, but he stares back at her with anger. She quickly retreats, admitting he looks scarier up close. Nevertheless, she's determined to give it a shot. She takes a breath and initiates a conversation, braving the unsettling atmosphere. Curious, she questions if he's not from the neighborhood. In response, he asks if she's talking to him, to which she confidently affirms. He points out that he sneaked up on her, yet she still ventured out to talk, concluding she must not be human. She retorts, doubting his humanity too, but dismisses it for now. Getting to the point, she asks how long he planned on lingering outside like this. He startles, muttering to himself that her house unmistakably carries Taeho's scent. However, as he inhales, it's not Taeho he detects on her, it's the scent of another clansman. Doubt creeps in. Was he wrong? is she not Taeho's woman? He scans the surroundings, convinced he wouldn't mistake Taeho's distinctive scent. Finally, he asks her if she knows Taeho Seo. Her eyes light up, secretly concluding in her mind that he must indeed be sent by Taekyung. She informs him that Taeho hasn't shown up in a while. Playing along with the idea that he was sent by Taekyung, she suggests he come inside for a meal. As he ponders Taeho's scent mixed with another, undoubtedly from the Seo family, he realizes that taking her up on the offer might be his best shot at unraveling what's really going on. The need to explore inside becomes clear, and he contemplates the potential insights waiting for him within her home. Inside the house, he takes a moment to sniff around while Jeongyeon prepares coffee. Muttering to himself, he dismisses her as nothing special except for her scent. However, he reminds himself that he should be able to see with his dark eye. As he opens his eyes wide, he catches glimpses of everything that happened to her. Taeho lunging towards a defiant woman and a man coming to her rescue, Taekyung Seo. It dawns on him that Taeho intentionally left this place with the scent all over him. Contemplating, he wonders if Taeho deliberately put her in danger, anticipating that tracers from the Yu family, like him, would come after him. Jeongyeon hands him coffee, but he's more interested in knowing when Taeho is returning. She admits she has no idea and prefers he doesn't. Pondering her uncertainty, he realizes in his mind that she clearly loathes Taeho. It leaves him questioning if he got everything completely wrong. Thinking this could be his opportunity to catch Taeho, he turns to leave, dismissing the coffee. As he walks out, she shares her doubts about him returning, but assures him she'll let him know if Taeho ever does come back. He reassures her there's no need, if Taeho ever shows up again, he'll be aware before she is. With that, he slams the door shut behind him. Left alone, she ponders if all clansmen simply do as they please. As days pass, she follows a routine, waking up at 5:30 a.m., having breakfast at 7 a.m., jogging for an hour, cleaning the house, and squeezing in a meal whenever possible. For lunch, she contemplates cold noodles. The man from days before joins her at the table. As they dine together, he suggests cold broth with the noodles. She chuckles, telling him he can't handle spicy food. Once he finishes, he stands to leave. It's an unusual living arrangement. 5 times a day, they sit across from each other at the table, exchanging conversations of less than 10 words. Outside the gate, he questions why he's still participating in this routine. It's not leading him anywhere. Jeongyeon steps out and casually informs him that she's heading to the department store quickly, and asks if he needs anything. He declines, and she replies with an okay before heading off. In his mind, he contemplates the idea that she might serve as bait for Taeho. In that aspect, she isn't too bad, especially considering she seems unaffected by Taeho's influence. Jeongyeon Choi is reserved, not indifferent. She's been through a lot of pain, starved for affection, battling with depression, but still hanging in there. To him, she's just another pitiful victim, caught up in Taeho's tricks, akin to Ma Young-hee. He feels a sense of responsibility to protect her, to ensure she doesn't get hurt further. Turning to her, he advises that smoking is really bad for her. She dismisses it, asking if he's going to nag her. He urges her to just go already. Later, as she drives in her car, she glances at the mirror, expressing her dissatisfaction with the way she looks, doubting if she'll ever be truly content. Through all those years she dedicated to caring for her mother alone, she experienced the sensation of being stuck in the middle of a dark tunnel, as if hitting rock bottom. It felt like her life was nothing but endless despair. However, now she's okay, expressing gratitude for meeting Taekyung. Arriving at the store, the receptionist greets her excitedly, revealing that they finally have the item she's been waiting for in stock. She mentions it's a gift, expressing confidence that he'll love it. In her mind, Jeongyeon adds her own hopefulness, really wishing that he does love the gift. Even in the midst of these dreary days, a smile graces her face whenever she thinks about him. She harbors the hope of being even a small solace for him. Not long after, as she walks through the store, her eyes catch a glimpse of a necklace. Gazing at the necklace, she wonders if Taekyung would like it too. However, she quickly tells herself to stop entertaining the thought, convinced that something like that would never look good on her, it would just seem awkward. The next moment, she's already paid for the necklace. Wondering why she bought it, she realizes she doesn't even know when she's going to see him again. With a sigh, she suggests to herself that she should probably take a break in Café Simple. As she sits down, she glances at the lighter she bought for Taekyung. She wonders if he'll get weirded out by it, but reassures herself that people give lighters as gifts all the time. Still, she hopes he doesn't pick up on how she feels about him. In a moment of self-reflection, she questions what she's doing right now. Muttering, "So dumb," she puts her head down. Suddenly, someone enters, and she hears a familiar voice. Trembling, she admits it's that awful voice she can't forget no matter how hard she tries. The person pulls out a chair, expressing disbelief at running into her here, and adds that she's gotten a lot prettier. Jeongyeon drops her cup of coffee, shattering it on the floor when she hears Taeho's voice. He questions what she's doing, and she stands up, declaring that after what he did, she won't be nice to him. With a raised voice, she yells at him to get out. Taeho looks at her, thinking to himself that this is the scent from her body, sweet and citrusy. He realizes it's true, she underwent the change. Smiling, he asks her what's wrong and if she's still mad at him. He suggests she shouldn't mind it, emphasizing that it's necessary. Confused, she asks him what he means by "it is necessary." He simply replies, asking if everything is still fine. He suggests she needs to be more flexible. In Jeongyeon's mind, she curses him, acknowledging that because of an asshole like him, she crossed the line of death. Taeho touches her hand and suggests they go eat since it's been a while since they last met. However, she angrily removes her hand and tells him not to touch her. He mentions how he tries to be nice to her, but she always annoys him. Ignoring her protests, he pulls her up by her waist and carries her, while she screams for him to let go. He questions why she's so dissatisfied, asking if she can't be nicer. She retaliates by punching his jaw, defiantly stating that she would rather die than be nice in front of him. He calls out her name, expressing his frustration, urging her to know her limits. She responds, declaring she has nothing to say to him. Pushing him away, she adds that she doesn't want to waste her time on a person who can't understand others. He grabs her hand firmly, reiterating that he won't tolerate her behavior anymore. Ignoring her plea for him to leave, she struggles, causing the gift from her bag to fly out. Taeho picks it up and teasingly asks if she wants to give it to a man. She yells at him to give it back, emphasizing that she didn't buy it for someone like him. In frustration, she kicks his knee, but he leans in closer towards her, intensifying the tension between them. As he senses her scent, he mutters to himself, puzzled. He then confronts her, asking if she's become his woman. She reacts with disbelief, calling him crazy and demanding to know what he's talking about. Growing increasingly agitated, he insists that she deny it, pleading for her to tell him it's not true. He tightens his grip on her neck, and she wonders if she's going to be bitten again. Suddenly, he kisses her unexpectedly, then begins sniffing her neck as she struggles, demanding to know what he's doing. He explains he's trying to understand why she has a particular smell. Panicked, she starts shouting for help, calling him crazy, and pleading for someone to call the police. He orders her to stop moving, insisting that no one will come to help her, and she should just be nice. In her mind, she thinks she doesn't want someone like him, she wants the one who helped her when she was in trouble. She shouts at him not to touch her, and suddenly flames surround them. Taeho's eyes widen as he realizes it's the ban touching signal, a restriction imposed on women in the race, an untouchable ban for absolute power. She falls to the ground on her knees, struggling. In his mind, he acknowledges that she pushed him. He calls out her name, and she tells him to shut up, she doesn't want to hear his voice. He stretches his hand, and suddenly Daewon-yu shows up out of nowhere, using his hand to push Taeho away forcefully. Daewon then asks Jeongyeon if she's alright. She wonders how he can be here. Daewon-yu takes off his jacket and puts it on her shoulders, telling her to wear it and run, because it's dangerous for her out there. Tae-ho then remarks that it seems he's lucky today, smiling as he says thanks to that, he can have a message. He then tells Daewon to stand up, calling him the dog of the Yu family. Daewon then asks Jeongyeon what she's still doing there, urging her to hurry and not forget that she's his target. As she runs, he thinks to himself that even though Tae-ho is just a kid, being from the Seo family makes it challenging to fight against him while protecting someone. They then start fighting, and Tae-ho quickly gains the upper hand, putting Daewon down. Tae-ho tells Daewon that he's talking to Jeongyeon, emphasizing that he doesn't have time to play with someone like him. Jeongyeon interjects, telling Tae-ho to stop. He responds by urging her to take a closer look, promising to make her feel interested. Jeongyeon covers her mouth, feeling compelled to take action as Daewon fights for his life. Daewon urges her to run, emphasizing that she shouldn't be the one imprisoned and killed by someone like Tae-ho. Tae-ho, in response, threatens to take Daewon's eyes if he can't look away. Jeongyeon screams at the top of her lungs, pleading for them to stop. Tae-ho questions why she's so concerned about Daewon, suggesting she might like him more than himself. In a surprising move, Daewon bites Tae-ho's face, prompting Tae-ho to scream in outrage, furious at the attack. Jeongyeon grabs a stone and hurls it at Tae-ho. She then notices Daewon lying on the ground, unconscious. Unsure of what to do, she recalls how Tae-ho cut off Daewon's hand when she fled earlier. Panicking, she starts screaming for help, desperate for someone to assist them, but it seems no one is around to hear her cries. Jeongyeon realizes Tae-ho is gone, but they're still trapped in the race's influence. Determined to act, she reminds herself to stay focused. If no one can see them, she figures she'll just have to call upon the monsters for help. Holding Daewon's hand, Jeongyeon reassures him that everything will be okay. She's determined not to give up. Meanwhile, Tae-ho watches from afar, commenting that Jeongyeon seems to prefer Yu's dog over him. Angrily, she turns to him and demands that he stop hurting others. In frustration, Tae-ho mutters to himself, questioning why Jeongyeon seems to prefer his brother over him. He's convinced she belongs to him, after all, he found her before his brother did. Jeongyeon, on the other hand, interrupts his thoughts, expressing her disdain for him. She clarifies that it's because of him, his actions, that she despises him. However, Tae-ho is seemingly oblivious to the reality of his actions. Jeongyeon's frustration grows as Tae-ho continues to send conflicting signals. She can't understand why he doesn't realize her aversion to him. In her mind, she contemplates the absurdity of his claim. She doesn't want to be a passive bystander, waiting for help, she desires something different. Tae-ho's lack of self-awareness baffles her, leaving her wondering what it will take for him to comprehend her feelings. Shortly after, a member of Yu's group instructs everyone in the cafe to head to the 10th floor. Once inside, Mr. Yu confronts Jeongyeon, demanding to know who she is and what she's done. She, in turn, questions if he's also part of the race, pleading for him to save Daewon. He directs her to step aside and gently places his hand on Daewon's chest. Mr. Yu calmly mentions that he can't heal Daewon's left hand, but thankfully, he's still breathing. Turning his attention to Jeongyeon, he inquires about what transpired. She explains that Daewon saved her, emphasizing that without him, she might not have made it. As they transport Daewon on a stretcher, he catches a glimpse of Myung-hee and offers a faint smile. However, the situation takes a sudden turn when one of Mr. Yu's men, standing near Jeongyeon, grabs her by the neck. His accusation echoes through the room, she's Tae-ho's woman. The atmosphere becomes tense, and the others gather around, declaring the need to avenge the Yu family, intensifying the gravity of the situation. The tension escalates further as the man gripping Jeongyeon's neck menacingly scratches her face with his finger, threatening even worse harm in the future. His words cut through the air as he taunts her, labeling her as merely human, demanding her compliance. However, the scene takes an unexpected turn when, in a sudden and surprising twist of events, he collapses to the ground, clutching his hand as blood spurts out from it. Jeongyeon finds herself on the ground, concern etched across her face as she checks on the man who had threatened her moments ago. Unexpectedly, the arrival of a familiar voice fills the air, lifting her spirits. Taekyung stands before her, and relief washes over her as she recognizes him. Hastily, she rushes towards him, and he, in turn, reaches out to grasp her, questioning her well-being. In a hurried exchange, Jeongyeon recounts the appearance of Tae-ho, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. Taekyung, taking charge, issues a prompt directive to Min-jae, emphasizing the need to prioritize Yeon's safety in the midst of the unfolding chaos. Yu voices his realization, acknowledging the mistaken identity regarding Jeongyeon's association with Tae-ho. Taekyung, in response, reflects on their past interactions, highlighting his efforts to extend courtesy and respect, even in challenging circumstances. Expressing his expectations, Taekyung emphasizes the importance of accountability among Yu's associates, especially considering their roles within the family hierarchy. Taekyung casually inhales from his cigarette, suggesting that they should inflict wounds that can eventually heal. He acknowledges that Tae-ho is unharmed, but he expresses concern about Tae-ho's actions towards an innocent girl. In response, Mr. Yu dismisses Jeongyeon's humanity, emphasizing her connection to Tae-ho as a significant factor. Jeongyeon's mind races with conflicting thoughts. She yearns for a normal, flexible life, but her responsibilities to her mom keep her tethered. She wants to carve her own path, but then she encounters a monster named Seo Tae-ho. Suddenly, she feels trapped, realizing she's not just human anymore, she's been bitten and transformed into something else. She wakes up in a panic, haunted by the nightmare that she almost lost someone, even her deceased mother. Jeongyeon's eyes widen with the fear lingering in her mind. Maihai, noticing her distress, offers to bring her some water to soothe her. Returning from fetching the water, Maihai notices Jeongyeon's shocked expression. Jeongyeon, relieved by Maihai's presence, drinks the water and then lays back on the bed. Maihai, concerned, asks if she still wants to rest. As Jeongyeon lies in bed, she muses about Taekyung's visit and how the pillow feels so comforting, almost like being embraced by him. She's eager to give him the present, but realizes she doesn't know where it is anymore. Suddenly, she sits up, remembering, and asks Maihai about her belongings. Jeongyeon realizes she left her handbag behind and panics, but Maihai points to a small bag, noting it seems important to her. Surprised, Jeongyeon asks how Maihai knows it's hers, and Maihai explains she can smell her scent on it. It seems Maihai can understand a bit about the race and their abilities. Jeongyeon reflects on her situation, wondering if Maihai's newfound understanding is due to smelling Taekyung's scent. Her day has been a roller coaster between heaven and hell, but as long as she can see Taekyung and the guard, being part of the race seems acceptable. All she desires is to smell the marks left by Seo Taekyung. Taekyung enters, noting that she doesn't seem fully recovered yet. Concerned, he sits beside her, offering some food he brought. He asks if she can eat, but she turns away, insisting she's fine, her face still hidden. He takes out his cigarettes, places one in his mouth, and asks her not to hide her face. After all, they had a date. She then presents the gift, extending it toward him and softly asks him to accept it, all while keeping her face concealed. He unwraps the gift, revealing the lighter, and questions if it's for him. She affirms, and he expresses gratitude, mentioning it caught him off guard. He promises to cherish it. Then, he surprises her by presenting the necklace she bought, confirming it belongs to her. He insists that he'll wear the necklace for her, but she protests, saying he doesn't have to. He counters, expressing his desire to do so, because it's fair, now that they've exchanged gifts. In her thoughts, she contemplates that when she's lonely, meeting him brings a sense of peace. Despite him being a monster in this chaotic world, if he's Taekyung, that's all that matters. To her, everyone is a monster, and if being with him means embracing that, she's willing. As she approaches him, their lips meet in a kiss. In the company, Taekyung's staff gossip about how unusually happy he looks today. They note that he's never been this cheerful before and even comment on how much more handsome he appears when he smiles. Seo Min-jae overhears them and wonders if they're really talking about the president. In SEO-1 Prime, where only 20% of employees are human, there's a strict ban on spreading pheromones due to the race. This law ensures that the president avoids unnecessary interactions with people. Seo Min-jae thinks to himself that the ban law seems to have been lifted, which is concerning. As he approaches Taekyung's office door, he notices the peaceful atmosphere emanating from the outside. Mi-hae surprises him by mentioning the refreshing pheromone, attributing the president's happiness to it. Seo Min-jae then notices her outfit and asks about her plans. She reveals she has a date and expresses her wish for the president's perpetual happiness. Min-jae disagrees, stating he'd rather resort to extreme measures. He inquires if Taekyung left Jeongyeon at home, and Mi-hae confirms she came alone. He instructs her to watch out for the Jean family members, because they might encounter Jeongyeon. Mi-hae questions why, and he suggests what if the official lady bride that Lady Young mentioned meets Jeongyeon. Min-jae suggests that she can't bring the Lady Chong here due to the president's strict rules. However, she confesses secretly wanting them to meet just to witness the president's anger. Min-jae responds with a strong disagreement, stating that he would rather take extreme measures. In Taekyung's office, he savors the cigarette, appreciating the size of the lighter gifted to him. Its significance lies not just in its dimensions, but in the affection it carries. Min-jae interrupts, and Taekyung, immersed in his thoughts, instructs him to get the documents without wasting time. Min-jae clumsily drops the document and queries Taekyung about handling the lady from the Jean family, implying he can't refuse her demands. Taekyung assures him he'll handle it in his own manner. Shifting gears, he inquires about Taeho's whereabouts. Min-jae reports that Taeho vanished after sustaining injuries. Taekyung presses Min-jae on Taeho's whereabouts, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. He stresses the need to apprehend Taeho, especially if he's injured, to prevent escalating conflicts. Min-jae suggests that to avoid warfare, Taekyung should consider marrying into the Jean family, citing rumors about their declining numbers and the need for fresh blood in their clan. Min-jae continues urging Taekyung to consider marrying into the Jean family, emphasizing that it could neutralize potential conflicts with the Yu family and contribute to the unity of the race. However, Taekyung dismisses the idea, pointing out the ongoing disputes within the Seo family leadership regarding nationality issues. Accepting the marriage proposal would put the elders of the Seo family at risk due to these internal disagreements. Meanwhile, if there's an heir through Chong, his mother could gain control over the Seo family and potentially sideline Seo Taeho. Taekyung acknowledges Min-jae's point, admitting that he understands the implications, but he simply isn't interested. Seated alone, one of the house staff members asks Jeongyeon if she's feeling bored being by herself. They suggest going to the mall, since it's open again, or going shopping. Jeongyeon's mind drifts to thoughts of Taeho. The staff member reassures her, saying she shouldn't feel pressured and can relax while she's here. Jeongyeon responds that she'll think about it. Curious about Taekyung's whereabouts, Jeongyeon asks the house staff. They mention she should check with the assistant since Lady Mi-hae left. Jeongyeon instructs them to simply inform the third assistant. A guy named Seo Kyung-jae enters, greeting Jeongyeon and introducing himself. He mentions he heard she wants to go shopping and asks if she'd like to go now. Jeongyeon declines, but he insists, saying it's a special order from the president to take care of her as an important person. Jeongyeon tells him she needs some clothes, so he should take her to the nearest mall. Seo Kyung-jae agrees, saying they sell clothes there, but he knows a boutique where the assistants often go, so he'll take her there. After finishing at the boutique, Seo Kyung-jae insists on paying for the clothes. Jeongyeon feels the need to pay, but he explains that those buildings belong to the race, and members of the same family don't need to pay. As they get into the car, he mentions taking her back to the hall. Jeongyeon asks about calling it the hall and if there's a special meaning. Seo Kyung-jae explains that among all the houses the master of the Seo family has, it's referred to as the hall. Sweating a little, Jeongyeon mentions Seo Kyung-jae seems to have a plan for the president to get married soon. He confirms, saying it's necessary for the existence of the family, hinting at the possibility of some great news. Upon learning that the bride will be taken to the hall today, Jeongyeon sadly acknowledges to herself that while Taekyung fixed her broken pieces and made her life normal, she's not part of his future, and their kiss seemingly held no significant meaning for him. Returning to the house, Jeongyeon encounters Taekyung. He inquires if she's back, noticing the sadness on her face. When he questions what she did today, she mentions listening to music, specifically Fly Me to the Moon. Smiling, he asks if she likes that song. In her mind, Jeongyeon wonders why Taekyung always confuses her. Despite having a fiancé, he acts as if nothing's wrong, welcoming her into his room, casually. She feels like he's making her feel insignificant, yet he still smiles warmly at her. She asks him if he sings often, and he admits he doesn't remember the lyrics of any song. Surprised, she questions him, and he confirms, adding that he doesn't have many hobbies. Curiously, she asks if he likes the song Fly Me to the Moon, and he responds affirmatively, wondering how she knows. She suggests that Taekyung can try singing for her, mentioning that Tae-ho told her about his good voice. Taekyung inquires if she likes his voice, and she affirms with a yes. In her thoughts, she reflects on his smile, acknowledging that he may seem like a bad guy with a harsh demeanor, but he has revealed a side of himself that only she knows. She feels like there's a side of Taekyung that only she gets to witness, a version of him that he doesn't show to anyone else. Curiosity blooms within her, and she longs to uncover more about him, to delve deeper into his hidden layers. For her, forgetting him isn't even an option. Whatever obstacles lie ahead, she's determined to seize whatever she desires. As Jeongyeon descends the stairs in Taekyung's residence, she's filled with determination, but also uncertainty. She wonders when she should begin and what Taekyung truly thinks of her. As she reaches the bottom, she spots some individuals who seem different, prompting her to question if they're part of the same group as her. Walking away, one of the members whispers if she's the woman, and another confirms that she's the successful human who underwent a transformation, a rare event that hasn't occurred in a century. However, the third member expresses dissatisfaction, pointing out that she's still human and cannot bear the seat of the race. They question why the head of the family favors her. The second guy remarks about the rarity of a changing human woman, emphasizing that he was the one who initiated the transformation, so he can't ignore it. The first guy contemplates the uncertainty of the future, acknowledging the upcoming arrival of the lady from the Jean family. He describes the Jean family as troublesome, referring to their leader as princess, suggesting she must be formidable. The first guy concludes that Taekyung will likely forget about the human woman soon. Taekyung muses to himself that Jeongyeon has indeed fallen into his grasp, akin to a wild animal caught in a trap. The thread he initially wove has now transformed into a complex web. He questions whether, even if she's entangled in this web, she'll still desire him. Torn between greed and jealousy, he wonders if she can look at him with those radiant eyes of hers. Taekyung is interrupted by someone calling him, and he turns to find Chong. He expresses surprise at her return to Korea, and she excitedly rushes to him, affectionately calling him honey. Taekyung, however, pulls her back, reminding her not to use that term anymore. Chong questions why he's feeling embarrassed, and Taekyung remarks on her improved Korean language skills. He invites her to sit down for tea together. As they sit down, Chong mentions that it's their first official meeting like this. She addresses him as Lord Taekyung, surprising him. Taekyung suggests she can just call him Kyung. Chong insists she should call him husband since they have a potential relationship. Taekyung attempts to speak, but Chong stops him with her hands, asserting that the Chong before him is no longer a kid. She refers to herself as Lord Taekyung's fiancé, with the scent of an adult. Taekyung tells her to stop, but she continues, mentioning the rumors she heard. Despite him hugging another girl, she assures him she can handle it. Chong insists that Lord Taekyung needs to understand how much she loves him, emphasizing that she's willing to bear his child. Taekyung stands up abruptly, stating that he isn't considering marriage. She argues that he must, pointing out that the human woman can't give birth to his child. Taekyung firmly tells her that Jeongyeon's involvement isn't her concern. Chong, furious, declares that if she continues to interfere, she will kill the woman immediately. Taekyung admonishes her, stating that when she talks about Jeongyeon, she shouldn't act recklessly. He hasn't granted her that right. Chong retorts, claiming she doesn't have any rights at all. Taekyung responds, explaining that he values her because of his friendship with Jeongyeon and her being Jeongwon's sister. She dismisses his words, claiming he only says that. Taekyung asserts that she's not a child anymore. She insists that he should let her give birth to the heir. Her mother came and trained her on how to control herself so she won't go crazy. Taekyung and Chong clash with their own ideas. She reminds him of her numerous proposals over time and declares she won't give up. Tearfully, she insists she won't leave unless there's a worthy bride for him. She adamantly states that the human woman can't be his wife. Min-jae is on the phone, urgently asking for details. The person on the other end reveals that the mistress brought a young lady from the Jeon family, and at the same time, Master Tae-ho also arrived for a visit. This complicates things, as the lord can't leave immediately. Dealing with the mistress's matters is proving to be quite challenging, and now Seo Tae-ho's sudden appearance adds to the chaos. In addition to that, Master Tae-ho fainted, and the doctor mentioned nerve damage from the poison. When Min-jae inquires about Mai-hai, the caller informs him that she turned off her phone. This triggers Min-jae's memory of her mentioning a date earlier. He instructs the caller to act quickly. Even if they have to use morphine to sedate Master Tae-ho, they should move him to a private villa in Seoul. Simultaneously, they should invite Jin's young lady to the main house and find out the whereabouts of Ms. Jeongyeon. Most importantly, he emphasizes that there should be no chance for Ms. Jeongyeon and the mistress to meet. In Jeongyeon's room, she complains to her maid about the noise outside. The maid wonders if they have guests and volunteers to check, urging Jeongyeon to stay inside. While ironing, Jeongyeon remarks that for the past 5 days, she's been folding Taekyung's clothes as if she's already his wife. Jeongyeon clarifies that it's not about appearing like a diligent wife, she's merely trying to conceal any evidence of her presence in his home. The maids diligently follow her, erasing every trace as if attempting to eliminate the acknowledgement that she's in the house. After all, this is the main house, where the woman is destined to become the wife of the head. She's clueless about Taekyung's whereabouts. Despite never contemplating having kids due to her body's limitations, she feels like a mere side presence, an utterly unbelievable situation. Her maidservant returns, reassuring her to be patient as there's quite a wait. There's a guest from the Jeon family being welcomed by someone else, so there's no need for her to fret. Plus, she brought some cookies along for her. Jeongyeon shares that she's not hungry, noting that this seems to be the first time they've had guests since her arrival. The maidservant adds that it's usually quiet, but with the guest being from his mother's family, the security is on high alert. After finishing the cookies, the maidservant mentions that the chef has made some cake and asks if Jeongyeon wants some. She agrees, mentioning it's delicious. The maidservant appreciates seeing her enjoy the food and promises to bring more. Alone in her room, Jeongyeon reflects that no matter how many times she listens to the song he likes, nothing changes. Their relationship feels too dangerous, and folding his shirts won't alter anything. Realizing she's the outsider and his wife is someone else, she contemplates staying in Taekyung's bed, listening to his songs. Despite waiting for him, as long as he has a fiancé, her position remains unchanged. She lights up a cigarette and notices she smoked half of the pack. Feeling foolish for touching his shirt and smoking like him while lost in thoughts of him, Jeongyeon hears a noise outside. Curious, she wonders who it could be, only to find Seo Tae-ho standing there, asking her why she's hiding. Frustrated with the guard's inability to locate Tae-ho, Min-jae inquires about the whereabouts of the madam. A guard informs him that she's inside the house, with a lady from the Jeon family. When Min-jae asks about Jeongyeon, the guard reveals she's in the master room, intentionally kept away from the madam. Min-jae vents his frustration, calling the situation stupid, as Tae-ho tends to seek him out whenever trouble arises. Meanwhile, in Tae-ho's room, Jeongyeon gazes at him with compassion. She takes a seat beside him, and he holds onto her hand. She finds it strange to hear him discussing trivial matters, especially considering his usual arrogance. His injuries and the scent that accompanies him make her feel sorry for him. Yet, in contrast to the events of that day, this seems like nothing. Seo Tae-ho's vulnerability, marked by every footstep, triggers her concern. She was determined to stand up against him this time, but the maniac prevents her from doing so. Even if he feigns weakness, in her eyes, he remains a cruel killer. Eventually, he faints. Min-jae, standing behind the door, asks if he can come in, and she allows him. Noticing Tae-ho holding her hands, Min-jae questions if she feels uncomfortable, and she admits that she does. Apologizing, Min-jae attempts to gently separate Tae-ho's hand from hers. Jeongyeon notices that Tae-ho's finger is broken. Min-jae reassures her, mentioning that he will heal soon, and asks if she feels any pain. She admits it's a bit uncomfortable, but tells him not to worry, emphasizing that it's not his fault. Min-jae expresses frustration, stating that this shouldn't have happened. He didn't anticipate Tae-ho would go to such extremes, with morphine. Jeongyeon mentions hearing that injuries heal quickly, questioning why Tae-ho is in this condition. Min-jae informs Jeongyeon that the members of the Yu family who fought with Tae-ho used poison on him. Assuring her that he will take care of Tae-ho, he suggests she go and get some rest. Back in her room, she muses that she can finally handle things on her own, despite the monster being injured and incapacitated. Hearing footsteps, she questions who it is, and in walks Chong. Chong remarks, "So it's you, the woman who captured Mr. Taekyung's heart." A foreign scent, an unfamiliar vibe, quite different from the nobles I've encountered. She questions Jeongyeon if she recognizes who she is. Jeongyeon denies any knowledge and inquires about Chong's identity. Sitting down, Chong introduces herself as Mr. Taekyung's fiancé, expressing awareness of Jeongyeon receiving his favor. She questions Jeongyeon about her connection with Tae-ho. Jeongyeon denies any involvement with Tae-ho, stating that he came on his own. Chong accuses her of lying and insists she tells the truth. Jeongyeon questions why she has to lie, and Chong retorts that despite seeing Tae-ho sleeping beside her like a wounded animal, Jeongyeon still denies any connection, which she finds unbelievable. Chong asserts her authority as the family's leader, advising Jeongyeon on the role of a concubine, likening it to a friend who surrounds the master's heart and must maintain proper manners. Jeongyeon dismisses the advice, questioning why she should listen to it. Chong insists that Jeongyeon must accept her role, implying that she desires to be Taekyung's concubine. She advises Jeongyeon to focus on serving him well. With that, she declares that she said what needed to be said and leaves, suggesting they talk again after the ceremony. Outside, Chong sees with anger. She can't believe they made her enter a room where Mr. Taekyung and that girl were together. It's a humiliating experience for her. She muses on the advantage of Korean nobility, noting that monogamy is valued and adultery is considered a crime. She questions whether she has to endure this humiliation because of Mr. Taekyung. Back in Jeongyeon's room, she ponders whether she's Mr. Taekyung's lover or concubine. Faced with this unsettling truth, she wants to turn away. Anger courses through her veins, causing her whole body to tremble. She vents her frustration by slamming her hand on the table, then heads to her desk to grab a pack of cigarettes, muttering that she needs to calm down. As she reaches for a pack of cigarettes, Tae-ho grabs her hand, startling her. She asks him what he's doing, and he responds by asking if she doesn't want to kill that woman. He offers to help her, but she retorts that if there's someone she wants to kill, he's the first on the list. She demands that he get his dirty hands off her. He tells her to speak properly and suggests she think about why he came in this body, because of her. He adds that he didn't mean to scream, emphasizing that he needs her. In a surprising turn, he suggests he might have fallen in love with her already. Jeongyeon firmly tells him to shut up. In her mind, she's frustrated because receiving the confession makes her feel like a beggar. Tae-ho, undeterred, asks if she didn't hear him, emphasizing that he loves her. Ignoring him, she repeats her command to shut up, and he apologizes. "Yeah, that's it. This feeling is love," Tae-ho insists. He presses her, asking if she heard him and urges her to leave this place with him. He questions whether it's worth fighting with that strange woman just to become a concubine. Unable to bear children, she should forget about him, Tae-ho suggests. Min-jae walks in, questioning if Tae-ho has gathered himself. Annoyed, Taeho asks if Min-jae just clicked his tongue. Min-jae instructs him to stop bothering the guest and leave the room. Taeho insists they're discussing something crucial, but Jeongyeon declares she has nothing left to say to him. Blaming him for her predicament, she adds that she no longer has a reason to stay. Min-jae mentions that the patriarch will be concerned about her. Taeho grabs her hand, urging her to come live with him, but she yanks her hand away forcefully. With resolve, she asserts she has no intention of living with someone like him, whether it's on his street or in front of his brother. She tells him to go and die alone. Min-jae intervenes, preventing her from leaving, and she expresses her disdain for sharing the same air as Taeho. Before Taeho can respond, Min-jae interrupts, addressing him as the little boss and apologizing for interrupting their conversation. As Taeho is being led away by the bodyguards, Min-jae urges him to stop bothering Jeongyeon. He asks her to wait for at least 2 hours until the president returns. In her thoughts, she reflects that she doesn't want to see his face now. Considering what everyone, including that woman, has said, she fears he might reject her for the future of the family. As the realization sinks in that she can't have Taekyung, it feels like she's turned into a monster. Min-jae asks about her luggage, and Taeho shouts to wait, insisting he needs to finish his conversation. Min-jae firmly declines, stating he will take Jeongyeon away. He warns that the poison from the Yu family is still in Taeho's body, so he shouldn't get too emotional. If he doesn't want to feel like a zombie forever, he needs to follow the staff's instructions. They'll give him the medicine he needs. Taeho then tells Jeongyeon to wait for him at home. He'll come over once he's fully recovered. Jeongyeon warns Taeho that if he shows up at her place, she'll kill him. Shortly after packing up, she heads out with Min-jae. As she gets into the car, she asks Min-jae to pass on her goodbyes to everyone. Min-jae assures her they'll meet again soon. Suddenly, Ah-hyung calls out to Min-jae, surprising Jeongyeon. Ah-hyung wonders if she knows her. Ah-hyung demands to know who the woman is, and Min-jae, attempting to explain, is cut off as she insists that he shouldn't even consider calling that person his girlfriend in front of her. Ah-hyung, surprised by the revelation, didn't expect her son to have eyes for just a lowly human daughter. Min-jae then turns to Jeongyeon, explaining that the woman is the president's biological mother. Ah-hyung, unimpressed, comments that she looks more disappointing than the rumors suggest. Nothing seems right for Ah-hyung. Jeongyeon respectfully introduces herself, but Ah-hyung dismissively predicts she'll forget her name soon. When she learns they are going out, Ah-hyung, unimpressed, comments on Jeongyeon's presence, thinking she's not just showing off her son's body odor. Ah-hyung acknowledges the line of emotions representing Taekyung's possessiveness, stating no parent can outdo their children. Min-jae intervenes, urging her to stop and go inside, but she insists on going with Jeongyeon instead. After a few minutes of awkward silence in the car, Ah-hyung breaks the ice by asking Jeongyeon about her age. Jeongyeon responds that she's 28 years old. Curious, Ah-hyung inquires if she likes smoking, to which Jeongyeon admits she does. Surprisingly, Ah-hyung reveals that Taekyung also enjoys smoking, finding a commonality between the two. Ah-hyung curiously asks Jeongyeon if she's aware that Taekyung already has a fiancé. Jeongyeon affirms this, and Ah-hyung admits she'd normally advise giving up, but in this case, she's at a loss for words. Ah-hyung knows Taekyung's determination and predicts that he won't easily let go, obsession and ambition hidden behind a facade. He'd do whatever it takes to win her over. Jeongyeon then questions if Taekyung is really obsessed with her. Ah-hyung confidently responds with a yes. Jeongyeon expresses her doubt, saying she doesn't think Taekyung is the type to get obsessed. Ah-hyung acknowledges this, but insists she's certain because Taekyung is similar to her in some ways, giving her insight into his feelings. Ah-hyung ponders over the lady's words, finding some truth in them. She reflects on the revelation that the man presumed to be the grandfather of the patriarch was actually the real father, Seo Min-hyuk. This lady contemplates the situation, noting the resemblance between the patriarch and Seo Min-hyuk. She thinks that due to Min-hyuk's violent personality, if he were to die suddenly, it wouldn't be surprising. However, she emphasizes that the true main character in this story is the woman herself. Ah-hyung gently touches Jeongyeon's hands and expresses that while she can't support her, she also has no intention of getting into a fight for daring to be close to her son. She thanks Jeongyeon for taking care of her baby. Back at the Taekyung residence, he returns and immediately asks if Jeongyeon has left. Maihai hesitates to answer, but Min-jae steps in and explains that Jeongyeon said she doesn't need to stay here anymore. Taekyung blames himself, realizing that Jeongyeon met with both the lady from the Jin family and his mother. Taekyung then inquires about Taeho's return. Min-jae confirms that he's back, despite some chaos, and his injury is nearly healed. Taekyung concludes that things seem settled enough for Taeho to return on his own.
It's been 2 long weeks since Jeongyeon left, and the days have crawled by like years. Every moment feels heavy and stretched, as if time itself is mocking her. She didn't think it would be this hard, but she didn't expect Taeyoung's silence to be so absolute. Only 2 calls, brief and empty, leaving her with more questions than answers. It gnaws at her, wondering if he's already moved on, if those 2 short conversations were his way of saying goodbye without actually saying it. She can't stop replaying their last moments together, trying to understand what went wrong. She left because she had to, but now she wonders if he even cares that she's gone. The sound of a knock breaks through her thoughts, jolting her from the quiet that's been consuming her. She freezes, a spark of hope flickering in her chest. Maybe it's him. Maybe he's come to finally talk, to explain everything, to fix what's broken. Slowly, she gets up and walks to the door, her heart pounding. She opens it, expecting one thing and getting another. The man standing there isn't Taeyoung, but his presence is just as unwelcome. He steps inside without waiting for her to say anything, acting like he belongs there. His casual words irritate her immediately, and she feels her temper flare. This isn't the person she wanted to see, and the sight of him standing in her home makes her blood boil. She can't stand his smug attitude, the way he talks as if he knows her, as if he has some right to be there. The rain outside doesn't concern her. She doesn't care about him getting soaked. The weather isn't her problem. When he tries to explain himself, it only makes her angrier. She doesn't want explanations or excuses. He shouldn't have come. His presence is an intrusion, a reminder of everything she's been trying to escape. She can't even look at him without feeling a surge of rage, a burning need to get him out of her space. The nerve he has, showing up and acting like she owes him anything, disgusts her. His mention of forgiveness is laughable. How can he expect that after everything he's put her through? The thought is ridiculous. He's oblivious to the damage he's caused, thinking that a simple apology will make it all go away. But she's not the same person anymore, and she's not about to forgive and forget. She remembers every moment, every cruel word, every action that chipped away at her sense of self. He doesn't get to act like none of it happened. She's not interested in his version of the truth, in whatever excuses he's rehearsed in his mind. His arrogance infuriates her, the way he still sees her as something he owns, something that should have followed his commands without question. It's insulting, and the more he talks, the more her disgust grows. She's not his, and she never will be. His presence now is just another form of control, another way to intimidate her and keep her under his thumb. But she's had enough. She's tired of playing along with his games, tired of the constant back and forth. He doesn't understand that every word he says, every step he takes, only pushes her further away. When he tries to explain himself again, she cuts him off, not wanting to hear it. There's nothing he can say that will change how she feels. The damage is done, and no amount of talking will fix it. She's reached her limit, and his attempts to justify his actions are pathetic. He doesn't deserve her time, and he certainly doesn't deserve her forgiveness. His insistence that she's being unreasonable only adds fuel to the fire. He's delusional if he thinks this is how love works. What he did wasn't love. It was control, manipulation, and pain. The fact that he can't see that makes it even worse. His final attempt to defend himself is met with cold silence from her, because there's nothing left to say. She's done with him. Done with the lies, the excuses, the toxic cycle he keeps trying to drag her into. He doesn't get to walk back into her life and pretend everything's fine. It's not fine, and it never will be. The past can't be undone, and she has no intention of letting him hurt her again. He smirks, telling her she has a real way with words, like he's amused by her anger. Jeongyeon's eyes narrow and she can't hold back anymore. She asks him if he even understands how much blood she lost that day, all because of his so-called love. That day changed everything for her. After what he did, she had no choice but to become something else, something less human. She's a half monster now, and it's all his fault. He killed her, not just her body, but everything she used to be, all because of his twisted version of love. There was a time, back when things weren't so broken, when she thought they could have been friends. She had even let herself believe that he wasn't just some terrifying monster like everyone said. But he betrayed her in the worst way possible. How could she not hate the person who took her life away? She's tired, so tired of this conversation. She tells him to forget it and leave, to just get out of her life. But before she can turn away, he grabs her hand, stopping her. His voice softens, and he says her name like it's supposed to mean something. He tells her he understands why she feels this way, but he needs her to believe his feelings are real. That everything he did was because of how much he loved her. He says he's thought about it, reflected on everything, and he's sorry. He even asks if she wants him to get down on his knees and beg for forgiveness, or if she wants him to go further, to humiliate himself if that's what it takes. He says he'll lick her feet if she demands it, anything to make things right between them. But his words don't move her. Jeongyeon's heard enough of his empty promises, enough of his excuses. She pulls her hand away and walks past him, telling him not to waste her time anymore. He's exhausting, draining her with every word, every plea. She's done with it, done with him. Without looking back, she gets into her car and drives off, leaving him behind in the rain. As she grips the steering wheel, frustration boils over. Why does it always have to be him? She didn't want to deal with Taeho today. She wanted to see someone else, anyone but him. But of course he's always there, always dragging her back into this mess. As she drives, lost in her thoughts, she suddenly hears a strange sound. Her eyes dart to the side mirror, confusion and concern setting in. What was that? She mutters to herself, scanning the road ahead. The noise gets louder, and for a second, her heart skips. Did someone just hit her car? Her mind races, trying to make sense of what's happening. What's going on? She says, gripping the wheel tighter, feeling the tension rise in her chest. Something's wrong, and she can feel it. Jeongyeon notices they're still following her, the headlights too close for comfort. She mutters under her breath, realizing she needs to get off the road. The fact that they hit her twice? That's no accident. Her hands tighten on the wheel, panic rising in her chest as she wonders what the hell is going on. Just then, her phone rings, and a man's voice, cold and sharp, cuts through the tension. He knows her name. He accuses her of underestimating the So family, calling her scrutiny petty and impertinent. His words get darker as he asks if she's a pawn of the Yu family, sent to seduce them with her body. He spits out his disgust, claiming humans like her always settle in places they don't belong. Her heart pounds as she demands to know who he is and what the hell he's talking about. Scrutiny? What does he mean? Before she can say more, he grabs her hands, gripping them hard enough to hurt. She yanks her hands back, shouting at him to let go. But before she can react, he shoves her to the ground with violent force, sneering as he calls her a disgusting parasitic bitch and tells her to die. The world spins as she hits the pavement, pain shooting through her body. As she struggles to stand, her eyes catch something bizarre. A car moving toward her without a driver. Why does she always end up in situations like this? She grits her teeth, frustration boiling over. Why does she have to suffer at the hands of these monsters again? She's had enough. She refuses to tolerate it anymore. Just as things seem to spiral further out of control, Taekyung arrives. His presence is calm but commanding, and he steps into the scene without hesitation. One of the men, the same one who attacked her, sneers at Taekyung, telling him to step aside and let the elders handle it. But Taekyung's eyes narrow, and his voice is steady as he asks the man what exactly he thinks he's taking care of. The man scoffs, calling Jeongyeon an impertinent wench, as if that justifies everything. Taekyung, unimpressed, shakes his head and tells him it's ridiculous for brothers to fight over women. It's beneath them, he says, but there's a fire in his eyes that shows he's not backing down. The other man snaps that such a situation is unacceptable, a disgrace. Taekyung smirks, telling him the elders must be bored to be this concerned. The elder scoffs, saying Taekyung has no idea how hard they work to get to their position, and that this could lead to a terrible scandal, having a woman like her come between them. But Taekyung's expression turns cold, and he warns them that if anyone so much as lays a finger on her, he won't forgive them. He walks over to help Jeongyeon up, adding that he doesn't want to see something so filthy. The elder, insulted, asks how he dares to treat an elderly man like that, warning Taekyung that he'll regret it. Taekyung just sighs, clearly annoyed, saying even the man's chatter is starting to irritate him. Jeongyeon, still in his arms, feels torn. Part of her wants to pull away, to turn around and leave, but Taekyung is holding her close. She's been longing to see him so much that she thought she would lose her mind. But now that he's right here, she feels even more nervous and uneasy than before. There's a heavy silence between them, and she can't bring herself to look him in the eyes. It feels like there's this huge wall standing between them, a wall neither of them knows how to break. Later, as they drive together in his car, Taekyung glances over at her and asks if she's hurt badly. Jeongyeon notices how calm he looks, like always. His hair is perfectly in place, not a single thing about him seems off. She thinks to herself how composed he seems, as if nothing ever rattles him. But then he breaks the silence again, his voice serious. He says from now on, he wants her to give him an honest answer. Jeongyeon repeats, "An honest answer?" She scoffs, saying she almost died because of him. He killed the people who tried to take her life right in front of her, and now he's asking for answers? She shakes her head, telling him the only important thing is that those monsters are dead, and she doesn't care what he says anymore. Taekyung asks her if she hates him, and without waiting for a reply, he says he'll do whatever she wants. If she can't stand being near him, he'll set her up somewhere safe, where he'll never bother her again. He mentions he has an apartment in Dogok, and then surprises her by saying he wants to stay there with her, just the two of them. He says he wants to cover her in his scent, to mask the foul stench he claims he smells on her from another man. His voice is low, almost possessive, as he says he can't stand the idea of another man's pheromones all over her. Taekyung then tells her she has no idea how much it comforts him to hear her heart racing, or her heavy, ragged breaths, as if she's finally let her guard down. Jeongyeon, exasperated, tells him if that's what he wants, he should just hold her. He warns her there's no going back from that, and she laughs bitterly, saying it's funny because she doesn't have anywhere to go back to anyway. Suddenly, Jeongyeon finds herself in a strange room. Confused, she asks herself if this is a dream. Her eyes land on a white animal. It's either a dog or a wolf, but before she can decide, the creature speaks, greeting her. She's stunned, asking if it's a wolf. The animal gives a sarcastic reply, saying it doesn't really matter. Then she asks if it's a dog, and the creature scoffs, saying it doesn't like being treated like a dog, but if that's what fate has decided, so be it. He tells her, generously, that she can pet him if she wants to. Feeling lost, she starts cuddling the dog, muttering to herself that she's given up trying to understand anything anymore, and maybe some puppy therapy is just what she needs. Taekyung says she has a cold soul, calling her little child and telling her it's time to wake up. He tells her to consider this moment as fate too. Suddenly, Jeongyeon wakes up and realizes it was all a dream. She mutters to herself, "What a weird dream," and wonders when she put on these clothes. She must have passed out at some point. But where did Taekyung go? When she turns, she sees him standing there, shirtless. She stares for a moment, noticing how his back reminds her of the white wolf from her dream. Taekyung turns around, asking if she's awake. She nods and says yes. He then asks if she'd like to wash up, to which she agrees, saying that would be nice. He prepares a bath and asks her how it is, mentioning that he added rosemary and lavender to the water. Jeongyeon sinks into the bath and says it's good, but admits that she's never had a bubble bath before, so it feels a little strange. Taekyung asks if her muscles are sore and offers to help her wash her hair. He asks if anyone has ever done that for her before. Jeongyeon thinks for a moment and says maybe when she was younger. Taekyung smiles and says he'd be proud to be the first in a long time. As she relaxes, Jeongyeon reflects aloud, saying that now that she thinks about it, she's always been the one taking care of others. Even when her hands trembled and blistered from washing her mother's hair, her mom would still demand the same thing from her, over and over. Instead of being cared for, she was the one always doing the caring. Instead of being the one in charge, she was always the one being used. Her voice trails off as she lowers her head, pain from the memories surfacing. Taekyung notices and gently asks what's wrong, apologizing if he upset her. She sighs, saying she doesn't know why, but something about this moment brought up memories of her past. She doesn't understand why she feels this way, but it's weighing on her heavily. Taekyung gently tells her he'll stop and lets her lean on him. He softly says it's all right and asks her to look at him. He tells her that no matter what happened to her or what she thought, none of it matters to him. He just wants her to know that. Jeongyeon suddenly bursts into tears, her voice cracking as she says the tears she's been holding back for the past 7 years are as bitter as the bubbles in the bath. He holds her close, telling her that all of this is a part of her. Everything about her, even her pain, makes him happy because it's her. He asks him what he's doing here, and he can't believe that he hasn't gotten the message that he's no longer welcome. He warns him that if the clan leader hears about this, there will be serious consequences. But the other guy cuts him off, saying that he still has feelings for that girl, and isn't that enough reason for him to be here? He doesn't get why she looks at him with such anger and contempt. He really wants to know if what he did was that terrible. The man replies sharply, asking if he's joking. He reminds him that Miss Choi almost died twice because of him, and that doesn't even include all the times he threatened and hurt her. The man stands up, clearly frustrated, and demands to know what he thinks he really knows about the situation. The other guy just calmly replies that if he didn't want to hear the truth, he shouldn't have asked in the first place. He tells him that it's probably best for him to head back now because the Yu family already knows about this place. It wouldn't surprise him at all if they burst in here any moment looking for trouble. The guy insists that he's going to wait for Jeongyeon to come back, no matter how long it takes. The other man shakes his head and tells him he can wait all he wants, but she's not coming back. He explains that for the first time in 20 years, the clan leader is taking a break from work to spend time with Miss Choi, and that their time together must be really special, like honey. He warns that if she finds out he's here, she'll never return. The guy responds confidently that he will just go find her himself. The other man tells him to stop sounding like a stalker. He snaps back, telling him to just shut up because he's really annoying. The man then asks him how he plans to handle the Yu family all by himself. He stands tall and says he will sort everything out with their clan leader because he hasn't done anything wrong, and all he needs to do is make that clear to everyone involved. He tells the other man that if he truly believes they will listen to his nonsense, then he must be more foolish than he ever imagined. He says that only a naive child would come up with an idea like that, trying to blame someone else for what he has done. He explains that blaming others is the same as admitting he is guilty himself. If he had been strong enough from the start, he might not feel so sorry for her now. As they continue to talk, 3 men walk into the scene, and one of them smirks as he looks around. He greets Min-jae with a smile and says it has been a while since they last met. Then he notices young Master Taeho standing beside Min-jae and comments on how it looks like Min-jae has brought young Master Taeho along for the ride. Min-jae, clearly annoyed, quickly tells the young master to step aside so he can handle the situation. The man then glances at Taeho and points out a mark on his face, saying that Daewon has left a nice little scar on him. He laughs and adds that it gives him a tough look. Min-jae, trying to keep the situation under control, asks the man what he actually wants. The man grins wickedly and says, "What do you think? I am here for a fight. I want to sort this out while our clan leader is not around, so let's get started." Suddenly, without any warning, the man slaps Taeho hard across the face. Then he complains about Taeho ruining the grass beneath them, saying that this isn't his place to trash. He tells Taeho to shut up and to not act like he knows everything. Taeho, holding his cheek, looks back defiantly and tells the man that he should watch where he steps, and he better not damage anything in the garden. Min-jae stands to the side, feeling overwhelmed by the whole scene. He thinks to himself that listening to their bickering is exhausting, and he wishes they would just settle things without all the shouting. Suddenly, Min-jae decides he has had enough of the fighting. He uses his power and throws the man who was arguing with Taeho away from them, sending him crashing to the ground. Taeho screams out, "No!" as he watches, realizing how committed he is to protecting every single blade of grass in the garden. It becomes obvious that he has strong feelings for Miss Choi, and his determination to defend even something as small as the grass shows just how deep his emotions run. The whole situation seems ridiculous, but for Taeho, it is clear that he would do anything to stand up for what he cares about, especially when it comes to protecting those he loves. As the dust settles, the tension in the air thickens, and everyone waits to see what will happen next. She feels nervous and doesn't want to look dumb in front of him. But Taekyung looks at her and says she's beautiful just the way she is. He really believes that she will become an even more elegant beauty as she grows up. He tells her that her skills will start to shine just as much. He adds that it just takes a little time to get what you want. She smiles and says she will work hard to become someone worthy of Taekyung. But deep down, she thinks it would have been nice if he had waited a little longer, especially if it weren't for that human who got in the way. As she sits there, she hears some voices outside. It's the workers talking. They say they think it's best for her to head back. She feels frustrated and tells them to let go of her because she has had enough. One of the workers says that the clan leader isn't around, and another adds that Lady Jin is out too. She asks about the assistants and learns that they left this morning. Ma Jin, one of the workers, says that means there's no one around who can deal with Taeho. She asks them to tell her what happened, but they hesitate. She feels nervous and admits she's afraid she can't. She insists that they shouldn't make her repeat herself and that they need to tell her exactly what is going on. They look at her with regret and say they are sorry, Lady Jin, but they can't share that information with an outsider. She looks around and asks if they see anyone else here besides her, wondering who can stop Taeho right now. She feels like she must have scared them all and explains that she tends to get really passionate when she's frustrated. All she wants to do is offer her help and pleads for them to be honest with her. One of the workers finally explains that young Master Taeho has some injuries, and she raises an eyebrow, surprised that he hasn't recovered yet. They mention that the only people who would attack Taeho right now must be the Yu family. She asks where Min-jae is, and the worker tells her that he left to see the clan leader. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, she connects the dots that Taeho was attacked by the Yu family, and Min-jae has gone to Taekyung to deliver the report. The worker looks worried and mentions that it feels like Taekyung isn't even there, and she starts to feel anxious thinking about where Jeongyeon is and how they will handle everything without everyone present. Taeho feels like he's talking to a brick wall. He wonders who he has to kill to make himself heard. One of the workers tries to calm him down, saying that the clan leader won't be happy with his outburst. Taeho insists that the clan leader will understand because the Yu family not only broke into Jeongyeon's home but also attacked him. He worries about what will happen to their family's honor if they just let the Yu family do whatever they want without consequences. He emphasizes that they barged into Jeongyeon's place, and he demands that they bring her to him right now so he can see that she is okay with his own 2 eyes. He thought she would come back if he just wanted her to. But all she has left is that shabby little house, a place filled with memories for both of them. And that's why he decided to wait there. He regrets ruining it, but feels that if it weren't for those bastards, Jeongyeon would have been back by now. He insists that they need to treat his wound first. The worker questions if Taeho is really thinking about starting a war. Taeho responds confidently, saying that a war sounds good to him, and maybe they should just wipe out the entire Yu clan while they're at it. The worker reminds him that they need to report to the clan leader first, but Taeho doesn't care. He tells him to shut up and asks if Taekyung is the only one he listens to. He thinks everything the worker says is just nonsense. He adds that if Minjae hadn't stopped him, he would have killed them all right there on the spot, and he thinks he went easy on them. She looks at him and says he is so pathetic. He tells her to get lost and says this doesn't concern her at all. She responds that it's hard to just ignore what he's doing when he's beating up his own clansmen right in front of her. He insists that they should mind their own business and that this isn't any of their concern. He adds that Taekyung won't bother with a girl like her, so she should just pack her bags and go home. She thinks that he's just trying to provoke her and tells him he doesn't really understand the situation. She points out that he is the one who dumped all his problems at his brother's house. She says he started this mess and is now taking it out on an innocent assistant. She teases him, saying, "Oh, now you know how to nag in Korean," and takes that as a compliment. He says he's done with this conversation and is leaving. She pretends to be surprised and says, "Oh my, are you leaving because you lost an argument?" He tells her he's going to handle the Yu family himself and settle this without Taekyung. She laughs and says he can't be serious if he thinks he can do it without Taekyung. He asks her if she's being sarcastic and insists he can take responsibility for his own actions. She cuts him off and says that just makes it sound even more suspicious. She tells him it sounds like he thinks he has some amazing power to take down the whole Yu family. He confidently says that of course he does and claims he could bring down that entire clan with just one finger. She shakes her head and says, "Ah, poor Taekyung, he must have had a tough time cleaning up after a fool like you." She says if she really wants to, she could turn someone like him into her puppet for the rest of his life. She lifts his chin with her hand and says goodnight to him. She feels like she can finally have some peace and quiet. All it took was a little poison to knock him out. She tells everyone to get this fool out of the way. He looks at her and says she really bested the young master this time. Normally, he would have to punch someone to let out his anger, but not this time. She shrugs and tells him not to mention it, calling him just an idiot. Then a man asks them who took care of the young master. He says Lady Jin did, and she managed to subdue young master Taeho. He can now see why she's called the princess of the Jin family. She really deserves to be the lady of the house. Another guy warns him to mind his words, saying he doesn't want to say anything bad about the lady of the house. The man asks about young master Taeho's condition, and the reply is that he's in the steel enclosure. The man screams in shock, "What?" He says, "Are you out of your mind? How can you lock young master Taeho up in there just because Lady Jin told you to? This is completely ridiculous." He can't believe what he's hearing and feels frustrated. He tells the man that he is an assistant to the Seo family, and he can't let this happen. The man responds by saying that Lady Jin single-handedly overpowered young master Taeho all by herself. He adds that it should have been his job to deal with Taeho, but the reality is that they are just assistants, not the direct descendants of the Seo family, so they can't just put their hands on him. Even if they wanted to, it wouldn't be right for them to do that. He insists that Lady Jin isn't the lady of the house yet, so how could he allow an outsider to confine someone from their own family? This makes him really upset, and he warns that this won't be ignored and that the man should brace himself for the consequences of this situation. The man looks a bit uncertain but still maintains his stance. He says, "But wouldn't it be nice if Lady Jin is the lady of the house?" He finds himself thinking that it would be better that way, but he knows that's not how things work right now. He then goes to see Lady Jin. When he arrives, she greets him with a curious expression and asks if he is here because he is upset with her. He shakes his head and says he couldn't possibly be upset with her, that he just wants to have a conversation about what's been happening. He thinks to himself that he is sure she knows why he is there and what he wants to discuss. She introduces her assistant, Taega, to him, and he feels a little more at ease knowing that she has someone to support her. She then asks him where clan leader Seo is, and he pauses before responding. He tells her that he can't share that information with her right now, saying this isn't the right time or place for that kind of discussion. Lady Jin raises an eyebrow and wonders what's wrong with talking about it now, and he hesitates a moment before answering, finally saying that their clan leader no longer wants her to stay there. He knows that this news will not sit well with her and is prepared for her reaction. She says they could leave right away. But to be honest, they need an explanation for why the lady is being treated like this. Lady Jin tells Taega that she asked her to greet him and not to take her anger out on him. He replies that he can't tell her where the clan leader is or what he is doing. She gets up and says he is as cold as ever. Then she turns to Minjae and tells him that she has no plans to get involved in the Seo family's affairs. She explains that dealing with Taeho was just a one-time thing and didn't mean anything special. She asks him not to use his loyalty to Taekyung to try to break her heart, because that won't work. She points out that both of them know that he is with that woman and that there's no point in being stubborn when they know what's really happening. She asks him if he has told Taekyung about her, and he replies yes, that he still cares about her. She raises an eyebrow and says, "So you're saying you can't marry her because you care about her like you would a flower?" She continues, saying it would be good for him, both as a clan leader and as a man. He thinks for a moment and agrees, saying she is right. He reflects on how, even with all the beautiful women in the Jin family, Chung Chung stands out. He describes her delicate, slender build, her porcelain skin, and her rosy lips that have the power to captivate anyone. He adds that even though her hands are stained with the blood of hundreds on her path to success, that only makes her more fascinating. Her spirit feels clear and pure, almost like something from another world. Her face looks impressive, like a doll, and when emotions flash across her features, she transforms into a beautiful statue that comes to life. It feels strange, but very, very attractive. She is the picture of perfection. He realizes that, despite himself, he wants to have her. She wonders why he is looking at her like that. Did she show her emotions too clearly? Even if she did, it shouldn't have been enough to make her assistant faint. She asks him what he thinks he's doing, and he quickly says he is sorry, that he must have gotten too worked up. He thinks about how he shouldn't have opened up his aura to this small woman. It doesn't matter how captivating she is still the princess of the Jin family, and he should not have acted like that. She tells him he can go, saying it's nearly dinner time and he should send the clan leader her regards. He replies to her, wishing her a good evening. As he leaves, he thinks to himself that he was just in awe of her beauty. He wonders why he feels this way and thinks he shouldn't feel it at all. That moment felt like a meeting between a man and a woman, and it drives him crazy. Her? Alluring? He can't accept that. He tells himself he was caught off guard by the spirit of the Jin family. He greets her and asks what brings her here. She replies that she was in the area, so she decided to stop by. Thanks to that, she was able to see something very interesting, which she thinks is a good thing, right? He looks confused and asks her what she is talking about. She tells him not to play dumb with her. He may carry the family name of Seo, but she doubts he doesn't know about his own background as an illegitimate child of the King family and where his line is going. At first, he is just curious, but soon he realizes he can't stop looking at her. Every time he thinks he has her, she slips away from him. Still, he wants to reach out more and more. Her breath is sweet, and her smile is bright, and he feels all mixed up because of her. She asks him if he is sure he doesn't want to go to work. He says he doesn't want to leave. She reminds him that they haven't left the apartment for 10 days, and he hasn't contacted his work either. He admits that he was busy rolling around in bed with her. He tells her he worries she will run away if he is not next to her. She points out that he has a fiancé. He asks her not to go anywhere because he can't live without her. He says he has finally tamed her, so she shouldn't even think about running away again. She thinks to herself that her heart won't stop tingling. She says she is so happy and likes him so much. And her smile lights up her face as she expresses her feelings. He looks at her and can't help but feel a warm rush of happiness in his chest. He asks her to stand up, Jeongyeon, and suggests they go buy a cake because he knows how much she loves sweets. He remembers that she had a ton of cookies earlier and can tell she is craving something sweet again. She giggles and admits that lately she feels like she has a bigger appetite. And even though she's not normally a fan of sweets, she can't resist the thought of indulging just a little. He jokes that maybe it's because of how often they have been intimate recently, and she rolls her eyes playfully, quickly responding that it's not that at all, but rather because he never lets go of her. He grins at her teasing tone and says that since she has him now, she should stop playing with him and go ahead and get ready. He suggests they should go on a proper date where they can have dinner and do some shopping, just like other couples do. She feels a flutter of excitement at the thought of spending more time with him, doing normal couple things. As they head out, it feels like the day is full of promise. Their date is simple but sweet. They enjoy dinner at a lovely restaurant that has a cozy atmosphere. They sit across from each other, talking face to face, and Taekyung stays close, always finding a moment to tease her about something, making her laugh and blush. It is the kind of date that anyone would expect, filled with lighthearted banter and sweet moments. Being able to spend time together like ordinary lovers fills her with so much joy that she can hardly contain herself, and she feels lighter than air as they walk hand in hand through the bustling streets. As they stroll into a store, the store clerk smiles and tells her that her husband is so thoughtful. She can't help but feel a bit flustered at the comment, but she quickly replies, saying he's not her husband. He's just someone she likes a lot. She smiles softly, knowing that no matter how greedy she feels, he is not completely hers yet, and that thought makes her heart flutter with a mix of hope and uncertainty. She apologizes for any misunderstanding and wishes the clerk a wonderful day. In her mind, she repeats to herself that he is not her husband or boyfriend, and she tries to convince herself that's how it's going to be for now, even though it stings a little. He notices her distraction and asks her if the store clerk said something to her. He heard her apologizing earlier and can see that she seems a bit flustered. He gently reassures her that she doesn't have to force herself to feel a certain way and that it's okay to be honest about her feelings. She looks at him, grateful for his understanding, and tells him she is fine. As they continue shopping, she can't help but feel a little giddy inside, thinking about how much she enjoys being with him, and the simple moments they share make her heart race with excitement for what lies ahead. She says she doesn't know what's gotten into her. Maybe it's just that she feels so happy being out with him, enjoying their time together. He looks at her with warmth in his eyes and tells her she doesn't have to pretend to be strong. If she wants to cry, it's okay. He wants her to be honest about her feelings. He says that as long as she is with him, everything makes him happy. It feels like they share a special bond that lifts them both up. She looks into his eyes and asks him if he loves her. He pauses for a moment, thinking about how to express what he feels. He smiles and says that when he is with her, it's like his heart lives and dies dozens of times each day, and he loves her more than anyone else in the world. Hearing this makes her heart flutter with joy. She responds that she feels the same way. All these moments they share and all the little things he does for her make her incredibly happy too. Their connection feels strong, and they both know that they are lucky to have found each other in this moment. He's surprised that this guy wants to meet him. What's the deal? The guy says he's a clan leader, so there's no catch. He says he invited him out to eat Korean traditional food, even though he doesn't like it. He even books the whole restaurant and gets someone to pick him up. The guy says the food is getting cold and that Mr. Jin should eat. Mr. Jin replies that he doesn't care about social niceties, but he keeps calling him Mr. Jin. If he's trying to be friendly like this, it must have something to do with the Seo family. This restaurant is one of the few places that lives up to his name. They even have their own high-quality liquor. Mr. Jin tells him to stop beating around the bush and just say what he wants. Mr. Jin says he wants Taeho Seo's head, but the other guy calls that nonsense and says he knows better. He asks if Mr. Jin really wants to start a war. Going against Taeho is one thing, but does he really think he can win against Taekyung? Taekyung is a monster, and Taeho is the only thing that monster cares about. He should know that the only reason Taekyung stays quiet is that he wants to keep things peaceful. Then, he asks Mr. Jin if he doesn't have that human woman. What does he plan to do? Use her to draw Taeho out? Mr. Jin says yes. He has seen the woman himself, and all the clan members know the clan leader likes her, but she also has Taeho Seo's scent. So it's kind of like a love triangle between her, Taeho, and the clan leader. But still, he thinks that human woman can't give an heir. She's just a temporary concubine. He says this isn't something they can just ignore. She's already fully accepted into the clan. Even if she can't have kids, she's still part of the clan, and if he really wanted to, he could make her the lady of the house. He heard the rumors, but now he realizes this is what Jeongyeon meant when she told him not to worry. This is what she's been hiding from him. And you know what's interesting? The first person to mark that woman wasn't anyone else but Taeho Seo. Isn't that something? The calm and collected Taekyung ended up stealing the woman his younger brother had already claimed. He cuts him off and says that's enough. If he's going to insult anyone, he should insult Taeho, not Taekyung. Taekyung is an old friend, and he won't stand for any more bad-mouthing about him. The guy apologizes, saying he overstepped. He thought, of all people, he would understand. He says to cut to the chase. What does he want from him? The guy explains that he needs a chance to cause a split between Taeho and Taekyung. The princess of the Jin family is staying with the Seo family as a marriage candidate, right? But things aren't going smoothly. That woman has been a problem for many, and he's planning to use her. He'll get what he wants, and the other guy will get what he wants. Mr. Jin asks what exactly he's after. Does he want to take revenge on the Seo family? Or does he want to take out his anger on that woman for her past actions? The guy answers that all he wants is Taeho Seo. He says he wants to lure Taeho out and end him quietly, asking for his support in the plan. He reminds him that Taekyung raised Taeho like a son after their parents were gone, caring for him deeply. But would Taekyung really sacrifice Taeho for the sake of a mere woman? He reassures him that there's no need to worry. Brotherly love can easily crumble when a woman is involved. Since he's gone through all this effort, he shares some helpful news. The perfect opportunity to drive a wedge between the brothers is now. Taeho is locked away in the steel enclosure. Surprised, he asks if that's true. The man confirms, saying that's the price Taeho pays for being unruly. Meanwhile, Taekyung is reportedly hiding away in some apartment with the woman, even going as far as executing some elders who crossed him. Taekyung has always been quick to anger and ruthless, so if he's ready to risk his life, now's the time to strike. He says that if Taeho and Taekyung already had a strained relationship, there would be no reason for him to make an enemy of Taeho. This is the perfect chance to eliminate a rival without dirtying his own hands. He warns, however, that Taekyung is unforgiving. Mr. Jin responds that he is just as relentless. If someone had torn his only sister apart and burned her alive, what would he do? He declares that Taeho must atone for his sins and vows to make him suffer twice as much as his sister did. Taekyung asks her if there's anything else she'd like to do. Now that she has new clothes, maybe she'd like a new hairstyle to match, or they could stop for dessert at a nearby cafe that's known for its pumpkin pie. She laughs and says it feels like he's more excited than she is. He smiles and says, of course, he's courting her. They walk into the plaza, and the receptionist greets them, saying they look great together and asks them to take a seat. She leans against him and jokes that she's gotten used to cuddling up to him now. He laughs and admits he's getting used to it too. While waiting, she picks up a magazine and sees a picture of a beautiful place. She asks where it is, and he tells her it's Fiji. He asks if she'd like to go, but she says she doesn't have a passport. Then he suggests Jeju Island. She says she's never been there either, explaining that she was always by her mother's side, and her mood turns a bit sad. He immediately asks if he said something wrong, concerned about her sudden sadness. She smiles and tells him she'd love to go to Jeju Island with him, and that she can go anywhere she wants as long as she's with him. He calls his sister to ask for help with the trip. His sister mentions that it's peak season and there will likely be a lot of people, but he insists, saying it's because Jeongyeon really wants to go. She teases him, asking if it's like a honeymoon. She says it's his romantic getaway, and she'll make sure to get those tickets. If she can't find plane tickets, she jokes, she'll put them on a boat instead. He laughs and tells her he's counting on her to make it happen. He wonders to himself if this is really a secret romance, and if that's how others see it. He would actually show off their love to everyone if he could. His phone rings, and someone tells him she's eating twice as much, but seems more tired. He can't think of anything specific to say and asks if there are any other symptoms. The person says she's been really thirsty, and it's been noticeable since her transmutation. He replies that it doesn't sound good and suggests they bring her in for a checkup, and the other person agrees. He starts to worry about the men in the Seo family, who are rumored to have killed their wives, and how the Seo men's pheromones are stronger than women's. He fears what if he's cursing Jeongyeon like the others before him, and it's not the transmutation but being with him that's making her weak. What if he's becoming poisonous to her? Jeongyeon asks him if he's still on the phone and says she's done with her hair and asks what he thinks of it. He says it looks amazing and jokes that she looks so pretty. He's afraid weird guys will start chasing after her. She laughs and says she didn't know he could say things like that, but he says he's being serious. She tells him they should go get some dinner since she got hungry during her haircut. He says he's happy she has a big appetite, but reminds her to tell him if she's not feeling well. She reassures him that she's more focused on how happy she feels, but admits that no matter how much she eats, she always feels hungry, joking that her stomach might explode at this rate. It was a simple, ordinary date. They had dinner, went shopping, and joked around with each other throughout. It feels strange to him because it's just a normal day, but having her by his side makes everything feel special. Sometimes he thinks he understands why Taeho is so fixated on Jeongyeon. Every moment he spends with her just makes it clearer that she's the only one for him. He tells her that he wants to spend his life with her and that he'll take care of anything that stands in the way of her happiness. He promises that as long as she's with him, he'll make sure she only has bright days ahead. He reassures her that they've arrived and she doesn't need to worry about anything anymore, telling her she can relax and sleep peacefully because he will always protect her. Then he looks at her and asks, "Jeongyeon, what's wrong? Are you okay? What's wrong?" She sees the dog from earlier and mentions how nice it is to see him again. He replies casually. She comments on how it looks smaller this time, and he explains it's not the same one. Those aren't puppies, but wolves. She finds it funny that she feels happy whenever they appear in her dreams and asks if she can hug one. He agrees, saying if it makes her happy, he's fine with it. She admits she isn't feeling sad anymore and thanks him for comforting her, though she insists she's happy now, especially with all the love she's been getting. He points out she sometimes has sad thoughts, and she acknowledges that while sad things happened, she's fine now. He tells her not to be weak or sad, and she reassures him she's happy. He agrees, saying if that's how she feels, then that's good. She reflects on how warm and peaceful everything feels, even if it's just a dream, and holding the little wolf makes her feel connected to it. Meanwhile, Taekyung is anxious, wondering where the doctor is and why it's taking so long. He feels powerless in a way he hasn't before, not even when his father passed away. He worries about what he'll do if she never wakes up and blames himself for the situation. The thought of losing her shakes him deeply. He says he doesn't even know how he managed to bring her here. Ever since she collapsed, nothing has felt real. He wonders if everything would have been better if he were just human. He thought she was happy with him, but he's scared that being the clan leader of the Seo clan would eventually hurt her, that she'd disappear before he could do anything about it. He pleads with her to open her eyes if that's true, then leans down to kiss her. For the first time in his life, he's afraid of everything. He says she has to wake up and look at him. The doctor arrives, saying he's here now and asks where Jeongyeon is. He quickly starts examining her and apologizes for not coming sooner. He mentions that the worst-case scenario could be a complication from the transmutation. Taekyung asks if there's something he hasn't been told. The The doctor says Jeongyeon has always been weak, even for a human, and after being bitten, she was neglected for a long time. Taekyung demands to know if this means she won't wake up. The doctor quickly apologizes, saying he misspoke. Taekyung warns him not to say something like that again, even if he's the doctor, and orders him to make sure she recovers. Taekyung then asks if there's any other news. The doctor mentions that clan leader Yu and Mr. Jin had a recent meeting, but everything else seems stable. Taeho is still lying low in the steel enclosure, and Lady Jung, along with the princess of the Jin family, remain at the main house. He asks if there's anything else. The doctor shakes his head and says, "No, sir." He explains that sometimes people from the Jung family have emotional connections that can affect them. He tried hard to push away his feelings before coming here. He wonders if he's still not able to get her out of his mind. He thinks about who those feelings could be for, figuring he'll find out when he sees them. Then, he goes to ask the doctor how Jeongyeon is doing. The doctor smiles and says he has great news. He tells him congratulations because Jeongyeon is pregnant. Miss Choi is carrying his child. The pregnancy of a clansman lasts for 3 months. The fetus of a clansman is about the same size and weight as a human fetus, but it grows much faster. This quick development happens because both the clansman and the baby are stronger than humans. An ordinary human womb wouldn't be able to handle this. The doctor tells him that Jeongyeon is a little over a month pregnant. He congratulates him, but warns that Jeongyeon is very tired right now. They need to be careful to ensure the baby isn't born too early. The doctor also mentions that it's amazing for a transmuted woman to be able to get pregnant. He says he is really happy to see this miracle happen. The doctor promises to do his best to help. Jeongyeon's womb is on the smaller side, but the baby is healthy. Her symptoms, like feeling tired and having a bigger appetite, show that the baby is growing well. He asks if this will be hard on her body. The doctor replies that they won't know for sure until next month, but her appetite is a good sign. He plans to give her some IV fluids and nutritional supplements to help improve her health and the baby's health. The doctor says she just needs to rest and eat a lot. He asks about the baby's condition. The doctor says that right now, the baby is doing great. It's healthy and developing well. He thinks a C-section will be the best option for the delivery because it could be complicated for Jeongyeon. He asks the doctor what kind of complications might happen. The doctor explains that because Jeongyeon is transmuted, her ability to adapt is not as strong as a clansman's. Since the baby is a full clansman, their bodies might not work well together. The doctor adds that this is why it might be better to deliver the baby earlier than expected. The man tries to keep Taekyung calm, saying they should take things slow. He reassures Taekyung that nothing will happen to Jeongyeon and that they will take good care of her. Lady Jung and the princess from the Jin family are still in the inner sanctum. The doctor mentions that it's been 100 years since there has been a direct descendant. And on top of that, this baby is from a transmuted woman, which he thinks is very romantic. He is excited to share the good news with the rank 2 assistants. The doctor then suggests that Taekyung take Jeongyeon to the inner sanctum, but he insists that they should get married first so the baby won't be considered illegitimate. Taekyung says that no matter what happens, Jeongyeon is his top priority. The doctor assures him that he can count on him and says that Jeongyeon could wake up any moment now. Taekyung might seem calm, but it's hard to know what he is really thinking. He paces back and forth in the room. Suddenly, Jeongyeon wakes up, sees the IV, and screams, "An IV? What happened? Did I pass out?" The clan leader walks in and tells her that they might have to give up on their plans for Jeju Island. They need to stabilize her body first. Jeongyeon asks what is wrong with her body. He explains that she fainted and that there's nothing to worry about because a doctor came to check on her, which is a good thing. Jeongyeon feels confused and tells him that she doesn't understand what he's trying to say. He admits that he is still thinking things through. Even if he tells her the truth and shares his thoughts and feelings, he doubts she would understand. He believes it's too late for that now, and even if she wants to run away, he won't let her. He knows that just being around her feels like poison, but he can't bring himself to let her go. He admits that he is being selfish. She tells him not to say that because she feels happy now. and it's because of him. He asks her if she wants to stay together forever since clansmen live a long time. He explains that his life revolves around her and hopes she feels the same way about him. He tells her to give her whole life to him. Want us to continue? Comment Taegyong below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, ciao!